Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Mitch. Your thumbnail looks such like your expression that I was sure that it was just frozen.
That's what I was shooting for.
And it succeeded.
You, Jay?
Hey, everybody. I just got off a call that started at 4, so I'm just going to microwave something.
So you're fresh and ready.
Ready to
Well,
go.
it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
Hi.
Hey there.
Hello.
Emily.
Let me grab my pile here.
Just so everybody knows, we are already live streaming.
Thank you.
Good to know, Anya.
Dropping the packages off, Anya.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it got me to take a little tour of the city.
Nice.
Hi, Joanne.
Everybody's here.
All right. Hey, Garrick. Well, I guess we could probably get started. All right, it's 6:01. We'll call this meeting of the Planning and Development Board to order. We'll start with agenda review. Lisa, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are a few minor changes that one of which was captured in the latest revised agenda and one of which I'll just give you a heads up about now. The first is that 430 to 444 West State Street project, the actions were inaccurate on the agenda. We're actually considering determination of environmental significance tonight. And the other is for the Asteri project. And it's looking like, because we haven't gotten the county comments back, we're probably just considering preliminary approvals.
All right, thank you for that. Before we move too much further into the agenda into public comments, it might be reasonable to introduce ourselves. I'm Rob Lewis. I'm chair of the board, and I'm just going to call on names as they appear on my screen. And Lisa, if it's all right, I'd start with you.
Sure. I'm Lisa Nicholas. I'm Deputy Director of Planning and staff to the Planning Board.
Mitch,
Mitch Glass, member of the board.
CJ,
TJ Randall, member of the board.
Emily,
Emily Petrina, member of the board.
Anya,
Anya Harris, City of Ithaca staff.
Mackenzie,
Kenzie Jones, Vice Chair of the Board.
Elizabeth,
Elizabeth Godden, member of the board.
Joanne,
Joanne Cornish, Director of Planning and Development and advisor to the board.
Garrick,
Hi, Garrick Blaylock, board member and liaison to the Board of Public Works.
thank you all. And the gang's all here. So with that, are there public comments this evening?
We have nobody who's asking to address the board on Zoom, but I do have one person who sent a comment to be read.
Great,
So, want me to go ahead and do that?
please do.
Good evening. My name is Dan Hoffman. I live on Elm Street and own property on Giles Street, adjacent to 6 Mile Creek Natural Area. I am writing about the proposal to construct a 6-story, 347-unit apartment building and parking garage for 318 vehicles behind the Gateway complex and immediately next to 6 Mile Creek. Assuming that the board names itself as lead agency for the environmental review for this massive project, I hope the impacts of a project of this scale in this sensitive location will be very carefully considered. Issues to be explored include, but are certainly not limited to, the following. Number 1, impact on 6 Mile Creek Natural Area and its gorge, which borders the project site. The building height already allowed by zoning will have a significant visual impact on views from and of the gorge, as well as on residents living across the creek from the site. The requested variance for additional height will only exacerbate the unfortunate impact. Number 2, impacts on the Gateway Trail. This pedestrian trail from downtown into the natural area is an unfinished asset. For years, the city has put forward ideas for extending it through the gorge and up to Giles Street. A short extension of the trail by this developer would be a positive result, but I have concerns that the proposed design subjects both the existing and new sections to heavy vehicular traffic merely mere feet away, without provisions for or specifics as to a suitable buffer, including a vehicular barrier as noted in the city engineering office, and I would hope significant landscaping. Number 3, for a project that's obviously trying to take advantage of an adjacent public amenity, I don't see much being offered in terms of new open or green space on the project site. If the city is serious about a Green New Deal commitment, a building of this scale with so much ground coverage should have a green roof with landscaping and opportunities for gardening, among other attributes. I expect to further comment as we learn more and additional project details are forthcoming. I encourage the planning board to seek and consider input on this project from the city's Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Commission, of which I am a member. The city deactivated its commissions after the pandemic started, but they should be emerging from dormancy soon. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any response from the board to that public comment? And I'll recognize anyone's hand. Mackenzie.
Thank you, Dan. That's all.
All righty.
Thoughtful comment.
Seeing no others. I'm sorry? Oh, I guess I'm frozen. Hello.
I can hear you,
I believe I
Rob.
cut out there for a second.
I can-
Great.
You're good.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the major subdivision at Carpenter Circle.
All right, are we ready?
I think so. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, good evening. Sorry,
I
I
think
was
so.
simultaneously log on with my computer and my phone just in case I have to walk out of my office. But it's good to see everybody again this evening. We are here requesting the preliminary approval of what we're calling
All right,
phase.
are we ready?
Sorry, I had to shut off the YouTube audio. We're requesting phase 1 review of the subdivision associated with the Carpenter Park project, which this board is very familiar with. We've spent the better part of the last year making various presentations and design revisions, recently receiving our overall preliminary approval and final phase 1 site plan approval. What we're here to talk about tonight is essentially beginning the subdivision process to establish the lots for the various uses that are associated with the project. The reason why the subdivision is being phased, if you will, has to do with the land swap associated with the community gardens. As you know, we're in the process of working with the community gardens and the city to exchange some land to make room for the mixed use building, which on this particular map would be where lot 2 is. That's a pretty complicated and lengthy process, and the developer, Park Grove and CMC, are very much anxious to get started with the project, namely with the construction of the medical office building, which is lot 1 all the way to the left of your screen, and also the affordable building, which is on the opposite side of the project, which currently has an application pending with the state, and we're hopefully here any day now on that award. So rather than wait for all of the land deals to essentially be finalized with the community gardens and city, which is going to still take several more months, we are proposing to begin the subdivision process to establish that Cayuga Medical Center Lot 1 and also the affordable lot, which then allows us to move forward with finalizing the financing and ultimately starting construction. So you'll see here the 4 lots in the subdivision, or 3 lots, if you will, are 1 for the medical center, lot 1. Then the more rectangular shaped lot is for the mixed use portion of the project. And then lastly, the affordable building is the small lot all the way to the north of the project. I do want to make note that this map that you're looking at right now is slightly different from the map that we originally submitted for the subdivision application. The change that was made was the roadway off of 3rd Street, which comes back into the project, and the parking area, which is on the northwest portion of the site under the overhead lines, was previously depicted as being part of the mixed use project. As we continue to work through the financing with our various partners, we quickly came to realize that it made a lot more sense to include all of the current proposed improvements. So the road that's going to go to the medical center, the parking that's primarily services the medical center, and the medical building itself should really all be on the same lot. So that parking area and the roadway itself was shifted from the mixed use building or mixed use lot over to lot 1 with the medical center, which just seems to make a lot more sense. So it continues to be the same number of lots as we originally submitted. There was just that small adjustment in terms of which lot the parking area and the road goes with. The affordable building itself continues to remain on the same lot as originally proposed. We would anticipate in the upcoming months, whether it's 2 months or 4, that's somewhat to be determined, that once we finalize our agreement with the city gardens or community gardens, at that point we would assume land control, or at least have the ability to make a subdivision application. And then we would submit for the lot line adjustments that would account for the land swap with the community garden, where we rebuild some new gardens in some areas and then extend the mixed use lot. So again, this phase 1 really establishes the CMC lot and the affordable lot and the road that goes along with it. And then a future phase will come in that just finalizes those last lot line adjustments, which we are simply not able to do until we have land control of the city-owned gardens. But this will allow us to proceed with the construction of the medical office building and also the affordable building. I do want to just note that, you know, we are pleased that we're able to include the affordable project in this first phase of work. And then, you know, the mixed use project would hopefully be shortly thereafter.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you breaking that down for us. Before we get into questions on this, we do have to do a public hearing for this particular action. Is there a motion for a public hearing? I see Mitch move. Do I see a second? I see Elizabeth second. All those in favor of opening public hearing, please raise your hand. Public hearing is now open. Lisa, is there any member of the public wishing to speak before the board? Oh, you're muted, Lisa. I'm sorry.
We have nobody who signed up for the public hearing.
Okay. Is there a motion to close public hearing? I see Mackenzie move. Is there a second? I don't have it. I see Emily second. All those in favor of closing public hearing? Public hearing is now closed. Great. So with that, are there questions for the applicant on the action before us? And I'm trying to adjust my screen so I can see everybody's faces, so please do bear with me. Any member of the board wishing to ask a question or speak to the applicant on the matter before we move into a vote? We've looked at this project for a long time, so it wouldn't be a huge deal if there were no questions. And there might be no questions, which I think is entirely appropriate. Okay. I'm just going to look for nods and eye contact. Are people comfortable moving this resolution in a vote? I'm seeing nods. Great. Is there a motion for preliminary subdivision approval? That's the yellowy manila. I see Elizabeth move. Is there a second? I see Mackenzie second. Any discussion? Lisa.
I didn't update the description of the subdivision is what they originally submitted. I didn't update it. So I don't mean, because this is preliminary, I think you could go either way, but do you want me to update it? And if so, they need to provide an update, or if not, then we'll just go with this and do the update for final.
I think the update for final is probably fine. But yes, the applicant should provide you with the additional details or the revised details. Any other discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of preliminary subdivision approval, That looks unanimous to me. Great. You have your preliminary subdivision approval. I hope to see you in some months for the second part.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
That brings us to the major subdivision at 120 East Green Street.
We're running a little bit ahead of time already, Nels. I don't know if you have everybody you needed to have in here.
Do you see Andy Sharaba in the waiting room at all?
He is not here yet. No, he's not in the way. Oh, there he is. Letting him in. Okay, I think he's with us now.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
We're ready. Take it away.
Okay, hi. Good evening. My name is Nels Bone. I'm the Director of Community Development with the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency. We should have Andy Sharaba from TG Miller and Bruce Adib Yazdi from Vecino. The Urban Renewal Agency is developing the urban renewal project for the redevelopment of the Green Street Garage. And the city has passed a resolution conveying the property to the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency for the purpose of that and facilitating that development project. And as you're very familiar with the project now, we are proposing that the Green Street Garage parcel be divided into 3 separate parcels to facilitate that project. It's important to understand that the parcel begins at the face of City Hall and extends all the way to a line consistent with the end of Center Ithaca, essentially. And so I'm going to ask Andy if he could walk through the different lots in the proposals, and I'd be available to answer any questions, as will the whole team.
Sure. Can everybody see my screen?
We can.
Okay. All right. So the upper portion of this map, which is the subdivision map, not the plat proper, which I'll show you in a bit, shows the existing parcel, which is highlighted in yellow. So as Nels mentioned, it goes from the east side of City Hall all the way to Home Dairy Alley, south of Center Ithaca, and to the east side of the center portion of the parking garage. What's highlighted in gray here is the first floor of the center portion of the parking garage and the western portion of the parking garage with the helix. So total acreage of the parcel is 1.487 acres. The subdivision proposal is to divide the lot up into 3 lots. The city would retain the L-shaped portion, which is in yellow, which stays from the east side of City Hall. It includes the 16-foot wide right-of-way access easement, a 12-foot access easement that runs south of Herald Square and behind the Commons properties over to Home Dairy Alley. The Vecino property would comprise of 2 separate lots. In the blue would be the parcel for the new 12-story multi-use building. And in the purple would be the center parking garage that would have 4 levels added to it. The current property has a series of easements with NYSEG and for gas and for electric and other cross easements for services to Center Ithaca and so forth. Right now, there's an existing right-of-way easement between the Home Dairy Alley property and Center Ithaca. It's 9.9 feet that extends down to the city property. We'd be proposing to add a 10-foot right-of-way to provide continuous access from Home Dairy Alley all the way through the project to the Green Street right-of-way. And then we will have multiple other easements that will crisscross the property once we get done with our design and our workings and our layout with NYSEG. So that's the subdivision map. The preliminary plat proper, which is not as pretty color-wise and has a lot more detailed information, shows the 3 parcels: parcel A, 0.649 acres, parcel B, .609 acres, and then the remnant city parcel, 0.229 acres.
All right, thank you very much. If that does it for the presentation, and it seems like that's pretty comprehensive, we do have a public hearing before us, so let's try to work through that. Is there a motion to open public hearing on this matter? I see Emily move and Mackenzie second. All those in favor? Public hearing is now open. Lisa, is there any member of the public wishing to speak before the board?
There is not.
Okay. Is there a motion to close public hearing? I saw Elizabeth move and CJ second. All in favor? Public hearing is now closed. With that dispensed with, the only matter that's left before us is preliminary approval of the subdivision. Now, this is a project we've looked at before, so there may not be a ton of questions, but this is a standalone matter. And Lisa, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I did have a question about the easements. I know there's so many of them and, you know, they're shifting all the time, but can we look at the easement map again, Andy?
Sure.
It's not, we're seeing some other kind of screen.
Yeah, we're seeing your Zoom screen.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry about that.
that's right.
That better?
Yeah. So in the Sidimopolis Alley area, there is going to be, you are going to replace the public bike or somewhere over to the right.
Correct.
Yeah, and should that be part of the easement or not? Or is that is the new property owner just going to maintain those? And how does the city feel about that since they're supposed to be public bike parking?
Can I take that question?
Yeah.
Please do, Bruce.
So I've been discussing this with Andy and Nels and our legal counsel as to what the best route of action should be on this. What we feel we need to do is, as Andy points out in his drawing here, is create a 10-foot right-of-way. And so there's really two issues. That right-of-way does a couple of things. One, it maintains clearly a public access in the north-south direction in line with Home Dairy Alley. It also gives us a 10-foot wide space for which to separate the buildings by building code standards. So that right-of-way sort of serves a couple of purposes. But we also probably need to include with the final platting and recording of this a public access easement, which would essentially encompass any of the pedestrian areas between the two buildings and along the north side of the center section of the garage. Anything that people are walking upon freely probably ought to have a public access easement installed as part of the plat. And that essentially allows for free, clear movement, at least for the period of time in which the parking garage will be leased to the city. At that point in time, if that needed to be changed or adjusted, it could be, or any point along the way. If Nels, as you pointed out, if the Sidimopolis facade might want to change at some point with another tenant, we would probably adjust that right-of-way easement to go with it. But I think our legal team feels like, and I feel like we probably need to have a public access easement that encompasses any place pedestrians are freely walking upon private property.
And just to make sure I follow, the 10-foot right-of-way is part of what we're approving today, but the additional public access easements are not? Am I following that?
I think they may be, but we would add those as part of final once we get guidance from legal counsel as to what we would need to add.
Okay, so we will look for those when we see this again for final approval.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board or staff for that matter? Seeing none, are people comfortable moving to a vote on the resolution before us? I'm seeing nods. All right, is there a motion for preliminary approval, preliminary subdivision approval? That's the pink resolution in your packet. I see Emily move. Is there a second? I see Mackenzie second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right, you have preliminary subdivision approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll see you shortly.
Yep.
Yes, you will.
That brings us to special permits. And we have 106 Second Street before us.
Anya, did you ever find out who's in the waiting room that just says iPhone? Did they ever tell you?
No, I have not.
Maybe
So-
Craig. Yeah, Craig.
Yeah,
I know.
if Craig is expecting Deborah, maybe that's who it is. I'm not sure.
Hello. Yeah, Deborah should be joining us.
Okay.
But I mean, we can start. I don't know if
It's
you
okay.
see.
There's a person in the waiting room who had just iPhone. So I'm trying to determine if that's if that's Deborah.
Right.
Hi, is this Deborah?
You're muted.
Me?
Hi, is this Deborah?
No, my name is Leslie.
What project are you here for?
Well, I'm in support of Deborah.
Oh.
Should I not be here? I don't need to be here. I can go away.
No, that's fine. You're a bit early, but it's fine that you're here. That's great. We might ask you to exit the meeting for just a moment. Is that how that works, Anya?
She can stay.
She can stay.
You can
Well, just
stay.
we're
Great.
gonna mute you until the public hearing, okay, Leslie? Thank you.
All right, Craig, take it away, please.
Okay, I'll share my screen then. That's all right.
Sure.
All right. Can you wait a minute? All right. Can you see my screen then?
We can.
You can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is a picture of the existing structure at 106 Second Street. It's a dilapidated storage building, sort of garage, barn, shed. When Deborah got in touch with us, she wanted to renovate it. It became obviously clear right away that we couldn't just renovate this building. So then the discussions of a new structure started. This existing structure is right on the property line with the neighbors. So with doing a new structure, we wanted to obviously remedy any discrepancy or any deficiencies in zoning. So we pulled the building off the property lines on both sides. And then we started talking about the possibility of an accessory apartment in here. It was a great opportunity for to build a space for Deborah's parents to be able to come and visit. We saw it as a nice infill housing opportunity. And then especially with the lot being, let me scroll down a little bit, especially with the lot being odd shaped as it is. It has road frontage on both Second Street and Cascadilla Street. And so we oriented the new building to the Cascadilla Street side. It already has a curb cut on Cascadilla Street. We wouldn't be touching the sidewalk, the curb cut, or any trees. We pulled it off, like I said, we pulled it off the property line 5 feet on both property lines. And we went through zoning. We will be on the BZA agenda next week, actually. So the only deficiency we still have is we are slightly over in the lot coverage. So allowable is 35%. With the new building, we would be at 38.5% of lot coverage. So we're going for a variance for lot coverage, and that's the only one. We've met all the other requirements for parking. We were going to make a more sort of designated parking area in the front here of the new building. It's somewhat used now from time to time, but it would be a more clearly defined parking area. And the building itself, we're going to try and maintain a certain amount of storage for Deborah herself, without creating a building with a facade that looks like storage. So we have a front porch, covered front porch, stairs up to the apartment. We have a little bit of storage and a little bit of mechanical space on the first floor for the apartment. And then the second floor is basically a fairly nice, 1-bedroom apartment. And as far as the elevations, this is what we're proposing. We think it fits in pretty well with the neighborhood. I know you're going to ask about colors. Deborah and I were just talking about that recently. She was thinking sort of a slate blue for the main body, and then a light color for the trim, maybe a cream or something like that. And I think that's about all I have as far as presentation. I'm happy to answer questions. As part of this process, we're partly here for a special permit for the accessory apartment, but also limited site plan review and recommendation for the BZA.
Great. I appreciate you breaking that down. So we have 3 actions before us. First to the public hearing, and then we'll consider approval and the recommendation. I want to table questions for now until we get to the approval step. And for now, I'm going to look for a motion to open public hearing. I see Elizabeth move and Emily second. All those in favor of opening public hearing? Public hearing is now open. Thank you, Mitch. And it looks like we do have at least one member of the public looking to speak.
You'll have to unmute yourself to speak.
Leslie? Yeah.
Leslie, yeah.
No, I didn't need to speak. I think I just touched something. Pardon me.
No,
I'm gonna mute.
There's a public, wait, there's a public hearing. If you wanted to say something about this project, now's your chance.
No, no, no. It's a great project. I'm going to unmute.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other members of the public wishing to speak before the board? Seeing none. Is there a motion to close public hearing? I saw Mackenzie move and Elizabeth second. All those in favor of closing public hearing? Public hearing is now closed. So one action down. With that, are there any questions from the board or staff for the applicant? Mackenzie.
I have a question, just a comment. This is I think a really lovely design and a good use. I mean, some of that we'll get into the nitty gritty with the recommendation of the BZA, but I definitely support this. I feel like it is aligned with some of the form-based code stuff that we talk about sometimes, like this is a great addition to an existing property improvement. So that's all, just my support.
Thank you, Mackenzie. I saw a lot of nods while you were speaking. I think that is in some ways the sentiment of the board. It's certainly a sentiment I echo. It's a nice design and an appropriate use in an appropriate space. Are there other questions for the applicant, or is there anyone on the board that wishing to discuss this matter before we move into the resolution before us? Lisa.
I just wanted to clarify something that Craig said. Well, I have a question, and I wanted to clarify that this project is subject to limited site plan review, which is staff level review. We're not doing that tonight. This is the board. If the board wants to undertake full site plan review on it, they certainly could, but that would be a separate action. But maybe, it doesn't require it, but maybe they could talk about the materials a little bit more, like what kind of siding is this going to be?
Reasonable. Greg, do you have an answer for that?
Sure. Deborah and I have been going back and forth a little bit. I think we're either on a solid wood siding or maybe a fiber cement siding. We haven't fully decided yet.
Those are both good options.
Yeah, both of those are very reasonable choices. Any other questions or pieces of feedback for the applicant before we move into the special permit approval? That's the blue resolution in your packet. Is there a motion for the special permit approval? I see CJ move and McKinsey second. Any discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of special permit approval on this project? All right, you have your special permit approval. That brings us to the BZA recommendation. Now for this, of course, we don't take a vote, but we do try to get to a consensus on what it is we want to say to the BZA about this project and this variance. And as I understand it, this variance is just for lot coverage. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. So things that leap out to me, that things we could say, we appreciate the infill housing nature of it. We appreciate supporting an owner-occupied development situation. And we appreciate replacing a non-functional dilapidated structure with something beautiful that adds to the city. Anything else we want to say?
I think it also corrects a existing deficiency with the side yard setback. It's always good to correct that if you have an opportunity. So it feels like it really addresses long-range planning issues that we have talked about.
Nice. So could we say that this, we see this in keeping with the long-term, long-range planning vision of the city? All right, that's always a nice thing to say. Anything else that we could say about this variance? Anything anybody wants to add? Lisa, is there anything else you need? All right, well, I think that does it. Thank you to the applicant. I think that that's everything.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure. That brings us to the Asteri project, 120 Green Street.
We are an hour ahead. Good. I see most of the people here. So.
Everyone.
Hello.
Bruce should be joining soon. Otherwise, it's just the three of us from the Asteri team. So
I'm here.
All right, Bruce is here. So we're here tonight to review some of the recent updates to the projects, massing, and as that relates to the neighboring building to the north. We also have a few elevation changes. So Bruce will primarily be going over those. These were the materials that we talked about during the recent PRC meeting. We also have a few new items that were requested during PRC, a comparison for the units, for example, from looking at what you've seen presented to date and what we're here to talk about tonight in terms of numbers and unit types. And we also have images that help provide an overview of all of the public spaces, as that was requested as well. That's not new information, but we have it tonight to talk about. So you got a lot of material from us for this past submission. You have a physical submission that's focusing on these updates for the massing and the elevation. And then you have the full project submission in a PDF. That's all of the many drawings, diagrams, and so on that you've seen before. And those are the latest and greatest from, most of those are from our 100% construction document drawings. So you can know that those have been looked at quite a bit by our team. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have about those. So I think, Bruce, I'll share my screen and just go through these as you start to take it away. I guess a little preamble, Andy was just up with Nels talking about the subdivision. So you're familiar with those issues, but one of the new pieces of information in here that we clouded is the new distances between the Asteria building and the Herald Square building. Overall, we're now 43.5 feet away from the facade of Herald Square. That's highlighted in these little bubbles. And you'll see more diagrams and drawings that reflect this as well. But the only place we're a little bit closer is where there's a trash chute that juts out a little bit. And in that case, we are 36.9 feet away from their building. And those distances are for it's the fourth floor and above. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Bruce, do you want to talk?
Sure. Thanks, Kate, for the heads up. And so, yes, I think today we just want to go through this one change that we've been collaborating with Herald Square, as many you've read in the paper recently. And so this is the changes that were a result of those discussions and collaborations. You'll also see here we've got a proposed solution for the loading and unloading area, but I'd like to go ahead and just go to the next slide and talk about the change that we made to the project as a result of our discussions. We originally had in the project a total of 217 units. Through the discussions then and everything, we ended up reducing the number of total units to 181. But as you can see from the percentages over on the right-hand side, the 1 bedroom and the 1 bedroom type A's, 2 bedrooms, et cetera, the percentage mix of the units really didn't change of any significance. We're still, for instance, on 1 bedrooms, we were at 48%, now we're at 49%. 2 bedrooms, we were at 5%, now we're at 4%. So some of the percent, 1% here or there, those mixes changed a little bit. But we also increased the space between the two buildings, which was a discussion point at this planning board at several times of the project. So I think that's a positive move in the process. And you may have also read in the paper that we've also struck a deal to do a second project in the city of Ithaca for affordable housing at the Chainworks development. So that would make up the difference and plus some for the units that we're losing here. Okay, let's go ahead and go through to the next slide. So I want to skip that and come back to the site work. So as you pointed out, we've made changes from the 4th floor up. So there are no changes to the 1st floor, no changes to the 2nd floor, no changes to the 3rd floor. When you get to the 4th floor, there's a new perimeter outline that you see there in red. That is the new footprint of the upper stories. So now we've created a lot more daylight, a lot more space between the two residential towers. Go ahead and go on up to the next level. So you go up to the 5th floor and above, it looks like this. So the tower has completely sort of pulled back. And go up to the roof plan. Again, you can see the areas that have changed there. And then as you go into the elevations and the massing studies, you can see, again, the difference in the massing along the north side of the building, providing more air, more daylight, more view shed from both projects to the exterior. I think it's important to note here, and we talked about this at the PRC meeting, so there were some sections that were requested. I think it's important to note here that really the only way you see this change is from the back. When you look at it from the street view or any other views, physically the project hasn't changed from the exterior viewpoints. So let's go to that 3-dimensional models there. You almost have to highlight the area that changed, and you can only see it if you're up in the air in a drone looking back at it at that like the picture in the upper right hand corner there shows, and it's got a little clouded area. As you look from the other directions, it's really not visible that it has changed significantly at all. But so I think today, the other thing that we changed in this process, as you go back, keep going through those slides and go down to the that one, we also changed the color of the metal panels. This was something that was discussed early on at the planning board meetings as well, just trying to create a little more light bouncing around in that north alley space. Since the conference center is still the same size as it was, we did change the panel colors to a lighter color. So you can see there on the left, the original metal panel colors, and on the right-hand side, the proposed metal panel colors, the new metal panel colors. And these have all been discussed and agreed to with the Herald Square team now. And we feel like it's actually a benefit to the whole project in the end, and feel like we've made a positive move here for the planning board as well. So really, that's the extent of the major changes that we've proposed to the project, of the metal panel color changes and the removal of 36 units to provide more daylight and air and view shed between the two buildings.
We can segue into an overview of the public spaces just really quickly. I'll be jumping around some slides, but this plan is the same design that you've seen. It just has color on it that hopefully helps with legibility. So on the Green Street side, we're working with the city's forestry department to replace existing street trees after construction. The facade of the garage will have plantings on it. You can see those in some renderings that will pop up in a few minutes. We've got public seating in front of the conference center, as well as plantings here. In the southwest corner, we have a retail plaza that's slightly above street level. We think this will be a really nice public amenity outside of the retail area there between City Hall and the project. The area between Cinemapolis and the mixed use building and partially under the garage, which we've referred to mostly as the Cinemapolis Plaza. It's the design you've seen, but there are a few new renderings that we wanted to share with you that are part of this package. So to warm up the space, we've talked about, but here we're showing some of the wood that we're using for the planters. You'll also be able to see wood in the 4th floor amenity space for the overhead. But these are new drawings here. They're a little dark on the screen, but we just know that that light is very important for these public spaces. So we'll have sort of a starry pattern above on the canopy of the garage, landscape lighting, accent lighting in a few different places on the benches and the planters. So that's looking toward Home Dairy Alley. And this is looking toward Green Street. You can also see how some of these vines will be coming down and kind of connecting between the two levels. And we have copies here of the overall elevation, so you can see the streetscape as a whole. This is a probably out of date rendered elevation of the neighboring project at 215, but it's included for scale. This is a rendered elevation of the garage that shows, this is a pretty, this would be the vines doing incredibly well over many years, but you know, the planters themselves on the garage are kind of this hot orange color, which we think contrasts interestingly with the gradient of sort of a green-blue gradient that goes up and down the west face of the garage and works with this geometric pattern of the vines that altogether creates a pretty interesting view for residents living in the Asteri mixed-use building or visiting the conference center. So again, these are things we've seen before, but wanted to bring it up tonight. And like we said, we have the full packet as well. So we're happy to go through any drawings there that anyone has any questions about. So I think that's it for our presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. That is a nice update for a major change. Because this is such a major change and because we are looking at preliminary approval tonight, I do think it's appropriate to go around the room and just make sure we hear from everybody and get everybody's concerns or comments or what have you out on the record. I can go first. I'll say that I was concerned about this change, and I'm very sorry to lose the units, but I think it might end up being a better building. I'm not heartbroken. And you know, I'm excited that we are as far in this as we have gotten. And I'm excited to get the rest of the way there. CJ, can I turn it over to you?
Yeah, I would just ditto what Rob said. Thanks for the unit mix. That's very interesting to see. Also, sorry to see the units go, but and I also really appreciate your creative approach to showing the materials. That's very cool. Thanks.
Mackenzie.
I echo all of that. And also congratulations on chain. That's not totally related. Just want to say that. Yeah, really happy with this. Satisfied with this as an end result.
Garrick.
I have no additional comments. I agree with what you said, Rob.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add.
Emily.
I agree. We were pushing to have more light and separation between the buildings, and I think this is a positive surprise. I'm also sad to see the units go, but happy that they're returning a few blocks further south.
Yeah.
Mitch.
No other comments. It's a great compromise, and I applaud the developers to figure that out. And I think it's an awesome case study to kind of realize that you had an adversarial relationship that was kind of moving forward, and I was worried about that, but you really went to the table and figured that out. So congratulations.
Fantastic. So it sounds like there's a general consensus on this. Now, this is just for preliminary approval, not final approval, and that will have to change on the resolution that is in your packet. It's the gray resolution that does say preliminary and final. And unless there's opposition, I would look for a motion for that resolution. I see Emily move, Elizabeth second. Before we move into a vote on this, let's open it up for discussion. Mackenzie, do I see your hand for discussion, or were you trying to move it?
That was an attempt.
Gotcha. Lisa, is there anything that we need to check in on before we move into a vote on the resolution?
This could either be preliminary or final, but I was curious about, I didn't hear about what the material is for the trellis for the vines. That's a pretty major architectural feature, and it would be good to know more about that.
And if I could just add to that, I had that same thought, and I wondered if by themselves, if the vines didn't survive, is it an architectural feature in and of itself, or does it need the greens?
Sure. We feel, so it's a high tension steel cable. So it has that silvery color, working with Hunt on those details, but the vines are, they are in a shady area. It'll take some time for them to reach that really robust state they were shown in, but we feel that between the metal wires themselves and the hot orange color planters and the panels of the different color gradient panels, that all together it makes a pretty interesting statement.
And they are stainless steel, so they will always be that color.
Yeah.
Mitch, I saw your hand.
Yeah, since we're talking about kind of facade and materials, I had some comments about the facade, about especially the south facing facade of the building. And I don't know if now is the right time to talk about that.
Sure.
Okay. I think my thoughts are really kind of looking at this section, the Green Street Garage South elevation. And I've always sort of thought that the facade of the Asteri building was a little flat. And I think I've mentioned this in previous board meetings. And it really stands out to me when you look at this elevation, the difference between the Ithacan and Asteri in terms of window to wall ratio. And, I have a sense or maybe a hunch that some of it has to do with cost and budgets in terms of building a market rate building versus workforce housing. But I would just like to suggest or recommend that you look into ways of either increasing window space or creating more shadow or more color, activating that facade, because as it stands for me, is my opinion. I don't think I think it could be better. And great project. I have no problems with the overall project. It's fantastic, and it's going to be great for downtown. But I'd just like to put in a plug for that at this time.
Thank you, Mitch. Any other questions or pieces of feedback before we move into a vote?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, if I may.
Okay.
I know that your resolution does say preliminary and final. Is there a reason we couldn't go for a final site plan review tonight?
We are waiting for comments from the county. So before we can do final approval, we have to either have 30 days run up or the county has to give us comments. And they don't have comments to us yet, and the 30 days aren't quite up.
Thank you.
Sure. So this will be just for preliminary. Any other pieces of feedback or questions from anybody? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of preliminary approval of this project? And I believe that's unanimous. Actually, I can't see McKinsey. Excellent. It is unanimous. So yeah, preliminary approval, and we will see you presumably next month to talk about final.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's effort.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Now that brings us to 215 State Street, for which I do need to recuse myself. Do we want to make sure we can move forward with this and that everybody's here before I do that?
Yeah, I will say that the applicants are not here yet. However, the applicant for Benderson is here. It's much later but there's no, you could either take that project now or do the zoning appeals. Well, there's only one zoning appeal, but that's the only applicant that's in the waiting room because we are running a little bit ahead.
I'd go ahead and do Benderson. I think that makes a ton of sense.
James, you're lucky. We could see you about 2 hours earlier than anticipated. So.
I wonder if there's a human there yet. Oh,
I'm here. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute. I apologize.
No worries. No worries. We appreciate you being flexible and being ready so early.
No problem. I've been doing this 22 years. I usually get here early. So.
Well, if you would, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what we're looking at. If you have anything to show us, you can share your screen.
I'm going to share my screen. Hold on, let me get that up there. Can you see my screen?
Looks like it's working on it.
All right. My name is James Baglioli. I'm in-house counsel for Benderson Development, and I know the board's familiar with this property. I'll just walk through the property and the project quickly and then take any questions you have. So this is the old Kmart. That was a long time ago when I lived in Ithaca. up here and the Staples. We've since expanded the building with Trader Joe's going in this location. The project has a large parking field that's seldom full. And out front, we constructed 2 out parcel buildings, which the planning board previously gave us approval for. One lines Fairgrounds Memorial Parkway. The other one sits across from it with a drive aisle in the middle and parking facing. What we're proposing to do is infill development to continue to really connect the site pedestrian-wise and building-wise and build on the density that's there. Let me pull their site plan. This is the site plan. As you can see, the buildings in the back, 2 buildings in the front. This is the location of the new building. It's a 7,000 square foot mixed commercial building. We're proposing some retail and restaurant. We are currently talking to tenants. Just walking through the building, you can see the landscaping plan over on the right, but I'll go through the color plan, sorry, on the left. We're proposing a pedestrian connection to the building down below. It's in line on Fairgrounds. You can get to the front of the building, which faces the parking lot in this location. Sidewalk wraps all the way around and connects to the sidewalk on Fairgrounds. Also, the sidewalk on Fairgrounds connects this way. So we are connecting the site all the way across. We're proposing an outdoor patio in this area. We're proposing to chamfer the building and heavily landscape the corner. So when you come down Fairgrounds, not only will you see the patio, but you'll see a lot of new landscaping in an area that's currently all asphalt. The front doors will face the available parking. Our handicap space are located in this area. We're proposing landscaping all along the Fairground side and in this area. The landscaping is generally a mix of fountain grasses, privets, roses, and sand cherries all throughout the new landscaping. We did look to connect this building to the building that sits in front of it. And as the board's aware, this is the building with the Chipotle in it that sits along Fairgrounds Memorial Parkway. It has the standing seam metal roof, a number of different tower elements and awnings. This is the back of the building that faces Fairgrounds. We did, working with the planning board, install 2 bays of glass and the awnings across the back. We did meet with the project review committee. This is the revised plan after those comments, just walking through that. This is the south elevation. That is the elevation that faces the parking. The tower element is located in this location where the patio is. We used a mix of materials consistent with the building that's in front of it, including brick in the front, storefront glass, awnings, and an EFS sign band, and tower element with the standing seam metal roof to tie it with the building in front of it. This is the east elevation. Again, this elevation faces the main drive aisle and is visible from Fairgrounds. We wrapped the storefront glass all the way across the front, carried the awnings across the front, added a small tower element on the chamfered corner. So when you see that, that'll be a raised chamfered element, which breaks up the massing of this building, both vertically and horizontally. This is the side of the building that faces Fairgrounds, the north elevation. That is here. Again, it starts with a chamfered tower element. We have 1 bay of glass and the awnings. Based on comments with the PRC, we carried the awnings all the way across the building. We broke up the building with the same brick pilasters that we used in the building in front of it, and we broke it up horizontally with the use of the change in materials and the trim, which is consistent and tied into the building in front. And this is the back elevation or the west elevation that sits back here. Again, we tied in a tower element to break up the massing. We carried the awnings across the length of the building, which was to address some of the comments from the PRC. We also, in our original elevation, did not have a storefront glass. We're able to carry 1 more bay of storefront glass. So when you see this side of the building, you'll see storefront glass, and then a small section, which is back of house in this area. That'll be the brick with the awnings. That's generally the project. I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I will remind the board that we are looking potentially at preliminary and final tonight. We don't necessarily have to do either of those, depending on the level of comfort we get with what we're looking at. But do try to keep that in mind as you are thinking about what you would like to ask the applicant. And before we go around, I'll just open it up to any raised hands in terms of questions or comment. Mackenzie.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. It was really
You're
thorough.
welcome.
In general, I totally support this kind of project that, uses existing kind of sprawling space to make this part of town a little bit more urban. It's something we all want. We don't have to add parking. I think that's all great. So thanks for that. I have two questions. One is at this patio corner. Can you tell me a little bit about what crosswalk exists, like parallel to Fairgrounds from
This one
that
here, I can pull up the aerial, and we can see what's there. That is in this location here. We have existing crosswalk. You can see it come across in this location. And then we have an existing crosswalk in this location. That is generally the same location as the crosswalk that's shown on the site plan right here. So that ties right into the front of this building. So if you were in one of the uses here, and we have people there parking back here, you can walk right across. Now you can walk right into this building, which will be located in this area.
Okay. Thank you for that. And also bike racks. How many?
I thought we placed
any
it, but
bike
we always put bike racks. I
The
just need to find-
northwest corner?
I
Is that-
believe
that what
they are.
those are?
Yeah, I believe they are in the northwest corner, and we'll comply with the NESA requirements. And we always have them. I just can't find them, but they're on the northwest corner.
Okay. Okay. I feel like the patio spot would be a place to really highlight. Maybe not directly in front of it, but on the edges of it, on the corners. I feel like those could be okay spots for just making sure that they're enhanced crosswalks and bike racks. And that's all. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the proposal before us? Joanne?
All right, just to follow up on Mackenzie's comment. So James, there is no crosswalk on Fairgrounds Memorial Parkway going. Can you? Okay, so the Tamford corner of the building, and so the sidewalk that's to the, is that north? Along
Yes.
Fairground, yeah. So if you keep going down, is there a crosswalk?
There is a crosswalk that exists there. That just didn't show up on the plan. That's not a new crosswalk. So you can see it on the aerial on the left side of the screen. If I zoom in.
That's what I thought, but I didn't see it. Okay.
Yeah, so it didn't make it on the plan, but that's existing. We're not changing that. That's just
Good.
not
Okay.
part of the work, not part of the work area for this project. So it didn't show up on the plan.
That's fine. It's amazing how many people actually do walk in this area, and so to have those crosswalks is important. So thank you.
Other questions and comments on this project? Elizabeth?
I just wanted to mirror what Mackenzie said, and I appreciate this area being developed and making it more pedestrian friendly rather than like a sea of parking. The question I had is there any thought to adding another crosswalk there across the large, I don't know what that's called, the 4-lane?
Are you here?
No,
no,
the other way, on the
This
other
way?
street.
Across Fairgrounds Memorial Parkway, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no stop control here. So we haven't proposed. I know historically I think Joanne, we've kind of discussed it in the past. This is a big cross area. So we've never, for safety concerns, we haven't gone over here. People would cross up by the signal and come down because we have sidewalks. We don't on the other side, but sidewalks on both sides. I'd be concerned about sending people 4 rows across in this area. I mean, if the board wants it, we could certainly add it, but I am concerned about safety. There's no stop control there.
Right.
It's not.
It seems pretty far to the next crosswalk.
Yep. I mean, the next crosswalk, we have one here. We have one here. There's just this is traffic, and I know the board's familiar with this center. Fairgrounds, while it's a site driveway, operates like a road, and some of the speeds are excessive at times. So I'd be nervous about adding a crosswalk there.
Fair enough.
Other questions and comments? CJ?
Yeah, I was just curious. The GEIS, I was wondering what the full build out for this is. Is it like 1.2 million gross square feet?
John, off the top of my head, I don't remember. I know our traffic counts are within the GIS.
Yeah, I think it was 1 million square feet, and it broke down to be 800,000 square feet of retail and 200,000 square feet of office. We didn't ever see the office develop the way we thought it would. So it's basically 1 million square feet. And I'm not sure where we are in that count.
Just curious if
Well,
there's a
it's a-
possibility to add more, more infill here without necessarily triggering full reopening of the GIS or anything. Just curious, because this is such a great opportunity. I just wanted to applaud the applicant for, bringing this infill development to this area.
Yeah, and I think what we would, CJ, that you bring up a very good point, and so we will check that. And I think what it would do is we would just have to do some traffic counts to see where we are with those numbers. So, but thank you, and we will check on that.
I just wanted to add that I think over the years we have done traffic counts. Tim has asked us to do them to see basically if we're getting the amount of traffic that was predicted for the GEIS. I think that we found that there's a synergy. So people aren't just going to one place, they're going to multiple places. So it was within the range, but you're right, we should.
Yeah, just double check that. Yeah.
I was just curious because, it does seem like there could be a cool opportunity to do some kind of like housing liner building over here. I mean, I don't mean to, I guess it's kind of anecdotal, but I think people might like living near Trader Joe's. I have a feeling that there's definitely an audience out there for that. Just kind of some commentary.
All right. Any other questions or comments for the applicant? Since we do have preliminary and final approval before us tonight, and we have not spent a lot of time talking about this project, I do want to go ahead and check in with everybody I haven't heard from yet. Garrick, if it's all right, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I basically have the same comments Mackenzie did. I think this is a really good location. It's a good use. It's adding more kind of urban density, if you will, in place of mostly empty parking lots. So for all those reasons, I think this is a great project. The objection that I often have about these kind of projects is, the orientation towards a parking lot and then kind of leaving back of house for people who are walking on the street. And I think the east elevation, I really welcome the patio and the landscaping there, and also a little bit of the landscaping on the elevation that faces the street. So that's sort of better than normally what we see. So I appreciate that. I noticed that even though it's only a small patio, that the patio on the Chipotle, I think it's really used well, and it just makes that building feel more of give it more of a Main Street feel rather than a strip mall or retail feel. So I shouldn't say retail feel. It gives it more of a walkable, approachable, usable kind of feeling. And so I, really for the same reason, I really welcome the patio here. So yeah, I'm all in favor.
Thank you. Mitch, I don't think I heard from you earlier.
No other comments.
Thank you. And Emily.
I'll say that I'm glad to see the awnings. I think that makes it the north side more feel less like the back of house and more consistent with the building to the east. And also, I think the chamfered corner does that, and adding the glass on the west side. So thank you for those changes. Otherwise, I agree with what everyone else has said. It's a good infill project.
Is there anyone with concerns about moving forward with preliminary and final approval tonight? Mackenzie.
I don't have concerns based on the project, but I just want to acknowledge whether or not we move forward with final, that we tend to not vote final approval on anything the same night as a public hearing, because we like there to be an opportunity for there to be changes or not. And we have both of those things on the agenda, but also there was no I believe there to be no public dissent, so I'm willing to like overlook that. I just kind of want to state that for the record.
Thank you, Mackenzie. And that was an excellent catch. I don't believe we've done our public hearing on this project, have we?
Right, not yet.
Thank you. I had totally forgotten. I very much appreciate that. Is there a motion to open public hearing? Thank you, Mackenzie, and Elizabeth seconds. All those in favor? Public hearing is now open. Lisa, is there any member of the public wishing to speak to the board?
There is not.
All right. Is there a motion to close public hearing? I saw Mackenzie move and Elizabeth second again. All those in favor? Public hearing is now closed. All right. Thank you. Thank you again. That would have been, well, I guess maybe it is embarrassing. Any other concerns prior to moving towards a vote on this resolution? Seeing none. All those in favor, wait, no. Do we, I'm totally off track now. Do we have a motion for the resolution? Did we do that already?
I don't think so.
All right. Is there a motion for preliminary and final on this project? I saw Elizabeth move and Emily second. Any discussion? Lisa, did I see your hand?
Yeah. You know, I mean, I think it's great to move this forward, but I think that we do still need some more detail about some of the, details. We need project details like lighting, specifications, and exterior furnishings, if there's a railing, things like that. So I have a standard condition that we use often that kind of says that, and I'd like to put that in if it's okay with you.
That sounds entirely reasonable. Any other questions or concerns or discussion before we move to a vote?
Just one clarification. So Lisa, do you want that to be for board approval or at staff level? What's the board comfortable with?
I think I would be comfortable with staff level approval. I don't know where the board sits on that. I'm seeing some nods. Okay.
We can also just update you once we get that information. We'll send it out so you can see it.
Great. Any other questions or comments before we move to a vote? All right. All those in favor of preliminary and final approval on this project? All right. You have final approval.
Thank you very much. Lisa, will you be sending us your comments so we can address them in the resubmission?
I'll send comments.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you. You too.
You too.
Good, James.
Bye, Joanne.
Right. Do we have the applicants for the project that we had queued up, 215 East State Street?
They're here.
Great. With that, I will recuse myself and Mackenzie will take over as chair, and I will see you all in a little while.
Thanks, Rob.
Good evening.
Hi, John. Hi, James. Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Good. Doing very well.
Good.
We got James on. We got Brian Bouchard, Jared Hutter from Ownership, I believe. There he is.
Yep.
Is that everybody? The three of you?
I'm just let in Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if Jeff Rimland is gonna be on. I couldn't locate him. But if we run this to 7:55 or whenever we were on, he'll join at that point.
Hopefully, yeah, I won't take that long.
Hopefully not.
Okay,
All right.
great. Yeah, welcome this evening. I think we're at a, crucial moment after looking at this project for a while. We are considering preliminary and final approval this evening. So we'll look to you tonight for any last project updates, details, questions. We'll do a temperature check of the board and then move on to the resolution at hand. Shouldn't take too long. I'll let you take it away.
I think the only item from the last meeting was a look at the active space on the first level towards the commons. And we got information from the architect that's working for Ithaca College. And so Mr. John Abesh will walk through that right now, talking about the active space along the commons or East State Street.
Great.
Thanks. So last time we talked, the board was kind of concerned about just the clarity of the public use along the commons and the public spaces, and it really pertained more to the program activity room provided by Ithaca College. So that's really the last update and clarification. So what we did is provided this flat elevation that sort of shows a little more detail along this elevation to help clarify that. So what I did is basically I'm showing you where the existing retail extends on the east side of the commons. The program activity room is right in between here. And I'd like to kind of discuss what that is. I talked with the architect for Ithaca College, and basically the program activity center is to be a marketing room for Ithaca College to promote their program to the public and to allow for the public and potential students to learn more about the college and the program. So it's always meant to be an active space, soft seating in there. It will never have shades on the windows. It will never be closed. It's supposed to be an extension of the lobby space to bring students in and public into that room, and basically have marketing materials on the back wall of it, and just a space to kind of showcase the program to the passerbys that are interested in the program and students that are interested as well. So really an extension of the lobby. This is the extent of the stair tower. That's a 2-story stair that exits out right to the right here. So we clarified that a little bit more. Ithaca College lobby. This is the extent of that lobby. This is the main entry to the Ithacan, back to Miller Mayor's office and back to the parking structure. That'll be the corridor that goes all the way through the building. And to the left of that is the existing retail to remain as well. So really that was hopefully to help clarify the extent of how much room that stair takes along the elevation and how much is really active use along the commons. And hopefully that helps clarify the strategy here and gives you a good idea of what we're doing. But that was the last update. Nothing else has really changed.
Great, thank you. We'll do a quick round among the board about those changes, and then circle back to decision making or resolving questions if those come up. So I'm going to start with Garrick.
No comments.
Great. Mitch?
No comments. Looks good.
Elizabeth?
No comments from me.
Emily?
That sounds great. The active space is great on the commons. And John, thank you for showing downlights on the outside there.
No problem.
CJ?
No further comments from me. Thank you.
I'll say that I think it's great. Thanks for the clarification. Will those stairs be lit from the interior
Yes.
at all times?
Yes.
And also never shaded?
Correct.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'm just a little curious, not that it makes a difference for the decision tonight, but inside the Ithaca College lobby and the entrance to the Ithacan, is there any kind of shared lobby space, or is there, I'm not looking at an architectural drawing, so is there a wall in between those two spaces?
Their lobby space is separate from the lobby space to the entrance to the building.
Okay, great. Okay, so in that case, I think if there are no further questions from the board or staff or comments, we are probably ready to move forward with this preliminary and final resolution. Do I have a motion to open that? I see Elizabeth move and Emily second. All those in favor? Well, any discussion first? No discussion, no changes. Great. All those in favor?
No, I'm sorry. There is there is a highlighted area on the resolution that you have to discuss.
Oh, great. You're looking at the bottom of page 2.
Yeah, the reasons for, I just want to hear it from you. The reasons for that this conforms to the street level active use zone.
Oh, yeah. So I would suggest, because we've seen those images tonight, that we appreciate that the interior program space aligns with downtown's goals for active use, design elements such as lighting and always available window views contribute to this being an active space. Is there anything else that any board members would add to that?
Do we want to say something specific about that we are glad Ithaca College will have a presence on the first floor at the Commons?
Yeah, I support that. Anything else?
Mackenzie, I'm sorry if you said this already, but I think it's important just to state that it will be lit and there will not be window coverings.
Yes. Yep, we did mention that. Thank you for reiterating. I think that those are really great design tactics for active space.
Yeah.
And easy, very simple. Let that be a model for other developers.
It certainly activates part of Green Street that's not
pretty
now.
kind of
For sure.
sharp.
I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
great.
And I think it brings a consistent frontage also to the Commons that doesn't exist right now. Some of it is very active, but it's not cohesive. So I think cohesiveness will contribute to it being a little bit more active. Lisa, anything else you need on that?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Great. So we have an open resolution before us with some updated information we just discussed that Lisa will put into the resolution. All in favor? Elizabeth, I don't see your hand. Wonderful. And did we lose? There's Mitch. Yeah, wonderful. That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. You have your preliminary and final approval. And
Thank you very much. So
yeah.
much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Lisa
John, will you
follow
send
up
me
with
that
any
drawing?
needs. Yeah.
John, send me that drawing.
I'll send you the latest package, the whole package. So, thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Turned out to be a really great project.
Oh
and
my gosh.
We're pretty excited about it. So, and Jeffrey missed it all. So,
We're gonna
I know,
play
the
a little
ease-
thing on him, tell him it got denied because he didn't
Easiest-
show up.
He should have, this was the easiest meeting. He should have shown up for
No.
this one.
I'm gonna tell him they approved it because he didn't show up tonight. You know?
all right.
Well, thank you so much. Best of luck with next steps.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye. And Anya, you could now invite Rob to come back. If that hasn't been done already.
I just did. I don't see him yet, but
Would we like to take a quick break while we wait for him to come back? We're ahead of schedule. Do we have anyone waiting for us?
oh, we do have the team from West State Street, but we are ahead of schedule if you. Wait till.
Anybody, quick show of hands, anybody needing a 5-minute break right now, or should we keep going? It doesn't look like anyone needs a break. We're just waiting for Rob. We could probably invite them in and I can take care of things until Rob comes back.
You guys are on fire tonight. Here's Rob.
Awesome.
Hello.
Good evening. Evening, everyone.
Hello.
Well, it looks like we're all ready to start with 430, 444 West State Street. Thank you to Mackenzie for running things while I was gone. Assuming the gang's all here, if the applicant could take it away.
Sure. Yeah, we actually don't have a formal presentation planned for this evening. We were hoping to give the board all the time they need to review the FIF Part 3, which is in front of them, and hopefully vote on the negative declaration, and make a recommendation to the BZA.
Great. I guess I don't have the recommendation to BZA on the agenda, but that's right. That is tonight. So yes, we will do those things. With that, I will add, oh, Lisa.
I just wonder if the board might find it helpful to have just kind of, the project review committee got kind of an introduction to all the new material that went into the FIF. I don't know if that would be, if the applicants could do that or the board would find that helpful, but there was a fair amount of information.
Yeah, if there's a brief sort of overview of what's new in the FIF, that could be helpful. Otherwise, we'll just plow through the document.
Yeah, there were a couple of new things in the FIF, and maybe Marissa can share the table about the phase 2 results. That's something we spent a little bit of time on in the project review committee. So just give it a second to pull that.
Sure. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
All right, so I'll quickly take everyone through this table. We tried to put it in a simple format so it was easy to understand. In terms of recorded DEC events, there were, in 1990, there were 2 underground storage tanks that were removed. That's the only recorded spill incident at the property. We did, in addition to obviously the usual phase 1 investigative work, there was a phase 2 performed for the property, and the results or findings of that are in this table for the majority of the screen. So on the left-hand side are the different types of tests we did between subsurface soil testing, air soil vapor, and groundwater testing, and the materials that were found. You can see the incidence or the number of occurrence for each of these substances. So subsurface soils, in 1 of 6 of the samples, we found acetone, mercury, and lead. And so the recommendation from the DEC, which we will follow, is of course that any soils leaving the property will be tested for landfill parameters and disposed of properly. Air soil vapor, we did find PCE in 2 of the 3 samples. This is likely the result of us being next door to a dry cleaner that was in operation for many years. And so you can see the mitigation there, as we will not have any below grade uses on this project, is simply to install a subslab vapor barrier, which we plan to do. The last testing we did was on the groundwater present at the site. Again, we don't plan to do too much subgrade work here. To the degree that's possible, we're obviously parking on grade, and the commercial space will be at grade with no basement. But if we are to encounter groundwater during the excavation, that will of course be tested and then disposed of properly as required. So that's a quick summary of the phase 2 results for this property.
Thank you. Is there any other new pieces of information that we should review before we get into the part 3?
The only other thing, I think it's on the next slide, was we did have a technical letter prepared with regard to trip generation. And so you can see the table here for trip generation. The first part is the total site generated trips from the new uses. And then at the bottom, you can see how that varies against the existing uses, given that it's currently a primarily retail site. So you can see our highest peak trip generation would be an AM peak hour with 38 additional trips. That's of course well below the 100 vehicle trips per hour threshold that would warrant any further investigation.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
That should bring us to the part 3. It's a 12-pager, so it shouldn't take too long for us to plow through. And it looks like there's language from the phase 2 just mentioned that's incorporated starting on page 10. Lisa, as we get into this, are there any areas where we should make sure and look a little closer or pay special attention?
I think it hasn't changed that much since the last time you saw it. Just that table that they showed for the phase 3, I think at project review committee, it was asked that get inserted in the part 3, which I didn't do. And I think it's really helpful and I can do that.
Okay.
But I think it's, just going through, I think his history section, construction impact section, you should spend some time on.
All right. Well, if there's anyone watching on YouTube, I'll apologize because this is the part where the meeting gets slow and everybody looks down at their papers and tries to get through this document. I'll also ask for any member of the board, if you find something in the document and you want to talk about it, please don't, raise your hand and wait for me to call on you. Just unmute yourself and share your question or concern, because I will be looking at the document as well. We still haven't settled on a foundation system. That's still accurate.
That's correct. It is going to be a deep pile foundation. I think we're currently investigating whether it's going to be driven piles or helical piles. But obviously helical piles being preferred as they won't cause as much vibration.
Sure.
It's like part 9 on page 6, impact on aesthetic resources. It's checked yes, but there's no description of why that's checked yes.
Because it was such a prominent building, so that was, and it has historic, it's partially a historic resource, so that's more explained in the part 3. And it went through design review.
So am I to understand from reading this that there will be no natural gas used in the building? It'll be all electric?
For the residential units, it will be all electric. Though one caveat on natural gas is if we do secure a commercial tenant who wants gas for cooking, that will be allowed and installed.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, but all the residential units will be electric.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you. That's wonderful.
And the ILPC, or Brian, the ILPC made a lot of comments on this project. The applicant did respond to them. I don't know if you have anything to elaborate on, Ian.
I don't. I know that there was a highlighted portion talking about updated elevation showing the retention of the hoist beam that currently exists on the Corn Street facade. We do have those elevations if folks would like to quickly see them. It's not that exciting, but the hoist beam is there. So we're happy to pop those up on the screen itself.
You will be taking up a lot of public space during construction. Sidewalks, parking spots.
Yeah, so the plan for the majority of the project is to divert the sidewalks along State and Corn Street into the parking lane there. So people will be able to have a safe space to walk on, you know, our side of the street, as it were, but they will be in the parking lane, appropriately protected, of course. The plan for what we'll call the middle portion of the project, when the building is actually going up, is to take a portion of Corn Street in terms of the travel lanes so that we can do our unloading of panels and lifting from that position. We're currently in discussion with Tim. I think we had initially asked for closing traffic in both lanes of travel on that street. I think after our most recent discussion with him, we'll likely just be taking the northbound lane to the point where we're raising the building before then contracting back to just taking the sidewalk.
What's your anticipated duration of construction?
The current anticipated duration will be 14 months in total, starting in Q2 of 21.
So on page 11, after the long excerpts from the phase 2, it says the lead agency recognized that in New York State DEC is responsible for improving the plan's redevelopment that entail the movement and handling of impacted soils and water. And then it goes on to say a little more, and then the lead agency has requested and the applicant has agreed to provide additional information regarding proposed mitigations will be incorporated into the project. I'm not sure I totally understand why we're saying that. And I think I just need somebody to explain it to me. And that might be the applicant or that might be Lisa.
That's certain that, you know, obviously all of this is draft language.
Sure.
And sometimes the board wants to know the outcome of those reports. You certainly did in other situations where the DEC is involved, that you want to know what the mitigations are going to be. If you certainly don't have to ask for that. DEC
Sure.
is going to take care of it. But if you want an update on the contamination and the mitigations,
So we're asking the applicant to share with us what DEC and they determine they have to do to mitigate. Am I following that?
you can ask for that. Yeah, the final plans.
Got it. Yeah, let's ask for that. That seems fine. I just wanted to wrap my head around it. And I'll say I'm comfortable with the document as written. It seems like a tidy and thorough phase 3.
Does the applicant, can I say something? Does
Please.
the applicant have a report out from Tom Parsons? I mean, I did talk with him, but I haven't heard anything specific.
So we had a conversation with Tom Parsons regarding, and I think there were a couple of points we discussed. The first was aerial access for the project, and I think we've had a good understanding with him there that aerial access will be from State Street, and he's satisfied with that. There was one point that he wanted us to follow up on. He had some concerns about the exit discharge path that led to Seneca Street.
Yeah.
We had a long meeting with the building department yesterday afternoon where we discussed that with Rob and Billy, just to confirm that what we're doing is in compliance with code, and they did confirm that at the meeting.
So if the board is fine with that, I'd like to just note that concern and that they're working with the building department and division and the fire department to resolve any issues with exiting.
It seems appropriate.
That we'd like something, it doesn't have to be the resolution, but just as a follow-up, something from Parsons, and just from Parsons. Eptimiatos doesn't need to give us something, just signing off and approving. So we have it documented, because
Yeah.
I know they were concerned.
Yeah. So obviously you wouldn't get your building permit until they signed off, but we want to identify it, you know, so. And then the other thing that the board sometimes asks for, and certainly in this case, I think it's could be really good to have, is whatever their you know, the pile driving, it's in such close proximity to other buildings, and it's a very densely developed area. You often ask for, and I think I did put it in here, you want them to submit their monitoring plan, and you know, when they figure that out, their pre-construction plan and during construction monitoring plan for pile driving.
That is in there, right?
It is.
Right.
Let me just make sure. I think it's under.
And you'll do a pre-construction condition survey of the surrounding buildings?
That's our expectation, yes.
Okay, and I think it's in everyone's best interest to do that. I know from a project that's being built right now, and they drove piles. We got a lot of complaints from neighbors and a lot of accusations that certain things that were happening on their properties were as a result of the pile driving, but because they had done such a good job before they started, they were able to say that, no, this was like this pre-existing before the construction. So I think it's in your best interest to make sure that that's a pretty thorough task.
Right, will do. We did the same on our project on the inlet, and we'll do the same thing here.
Good.
Are there questions and comments from the board or from staff? Are people comfortable moving forward with the seeker negative declaration resolution before us? I'm seeing nods. Okay. Is there a motion for the yellow resolution in your packet, seeker negative declaration on this project? I saw Elizabeth move and I saw Mackenzie second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the seeker negative declaration for this project? Great, I believe that's unanimous. So congratulations, you have a neg deck. The only thing that's left for us to do on this project today is to talk about the zoning appeal and what, if anything, we want to say to the BZA. Remind us what you guys need for a variance.
Sure, and we can throw up a couple of quick slides.
Sure, that'd be great.
Marissa, we'll put those up, and I'll let Eric take the floor to talk about something that's more design oriented.
Yes, good evening, members of the board. I'm Eric Colbert with Eric Colbert and Associates Architects. And the issue is fairly straightforward, and it's based on the fact that we have a lower density zone on the north side of our site, which extends about 70 feet from West Seneca Street property line. And that zone authorizes a 40-foot high structure, whereas on the south side, the majority of our project is allowed to have a 52-foot height. And that's a kind of a minimum height for the project, in the sense that in order to make the project economically feasible, we would use wood construction on a podium. So we have the concrete podium, then the wood floors are relatively thick compared to other types of construction. So we really need, on the first floor, it's actually kind of marginal, the 12 feet for the commercial space. And then above that 10 floor to floor to get, even with that, we're only getting about hopefully 8.5 feet clear height, and maybe even a little less, depending on what kind of trusses we can use. But so if we keep the north side at 40, the floors will not line up, and that creates, a handicap accessibility problem. So it just seems that if we could just get a variance, this document shows just making it a line, that it won't really create any kind of visual problem that I think most people that go by or live around the area probably wouldn't really perceive any significant difference. The other thing is that with the, so this document shows a side west elevation looking at the side of the garage, and it actually, with a lower part, it kind of crimps our parking clearance. So that's another reason, in addition to the handicap accessibility problem that would be created by having to have a kind of a split level floor for the part that's on the north side. So what we're going to do is, in any case, the north side would have one floor lower. And so our proposal includes a heavily landscaped deck for residents there in that location. Because of the limitation imposed by the building code, this is not going to be, this is kind of a decorative element. It can be used by people, but it's not, most of the area is actually landscape. So it's not going to be this, annoying party deck. It's really kind of a serene path that goes around the middle part of landscaping. And then, like I said, it's mostly a green area.
All right, thank you for laying that out for us. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that in many of the CBD zones, we did add 2 feet. For instance, the CBD 50 zone is now CBD 52. CBD 60 is now CBD 62. And it's because of that 12-foot height on the first floor. So by the time even if you do 10 feet floor to floor, if we require 12 feet on that first floor, you're always adding those 2 feet. So this is really in keeping with why we made those changes. It just happens to not be a CBD zone.
Fair enough. That makes a ton of sense. In your opinion, Joanne, would it be compelling to include that in our rationale on this variance?
I do think it's important. Yes. I mean, other than, having the floors line up, I mean, that really is important. And I think just aesthetically to have that additional space so it's all even on that first floor. So yeah, I think we could add language to that effect.
Other things that occurred to me were the importance of building housing downtown. I think hitting the ADA accessibility issue is very reasonable and very fair. I would encourage the applicant to bring those 2 slides because I think they lay it out pretty
Those
simply.
are very clear. Yeah, those are very good. Yeah.
And I don't know that there's too much else to say. This seems kind of cut and dry. Is there anything that any member of the board or staff would want to add to this?
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, okay. Well, that might do it. Thank you very much to the applicant. We appreciate you breaking everything down for us tonight, and I expect we will see you again shortly for the next stage of the approvals process.
Well, thank you, everyone. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
I believe that brings us to Dwyer Dam.
It does bring us to Dwyer Dam. There's nobody from Cornell here tonight. I feel like you could move forward without them being here because the only reason you didn't do final approval last month was just because we hadn't gotten the county comments yet. I think you were ready to do it. But alternatively, we could do the other zoning appeal. And I've let the applicants know that they need to get here because we're running so far ahead. It's kind of amazing.
I actually, I had emailed Tammy too, and I don't know if she was gonna show up or not.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who this. There's a Jules in the waiting room.
No idea. Yeah,
don't know.
It's not a Cornell name I've ever heard. And I told the north side people to come, so I'll let them know.
So I would be pretty comfortable moving forward with Dwyer Dam just because I felt like it was pretty simple last time, and really the only reason we didn't move to final is because we couldn't. And unless there's any opposition from anyone on the board or staff for that matter, I would say we go ahead and knock it out.
Lisa,
think
do
that
I have
makes-
to leave or should I just be quiet?
I'm sorry?
Do you have something to disclose, Elizabeth?
I usually leave on all the Cornell projects.
Okay, so I think that's fine. And I guess you'll leave the meeting and then one of us will text you as soon as we're done with this section.
Okay.
Joanne, do you think it's fine that they're not here? I mean, it's really.
I think it's fine. I think if there was a question that came up or there was a concern, then we'll pull back and we'll wait for them. But maybe if we go around and there aren't any, then yeah.
Fair enough. So I'm not going to ask for a motion on the resolution yet. It's the green final approval resolution. Before we do that, I just want to go around and just check in with everybody for level of comfort, get everyone on the record. I will say for my piece, this seems like a good project, needed infrastructure, maintenance and improvement. They seem to be approaching the whole thing fairly sensitively, and I'm excited to move forward. Mitch, can I turn it to you?
No further comments.
CJ?
Same.
Garrick?
Yeah, I'm all in favor. Only question I have is, and I mentioned this in the first meeting, is there anything we can do to try to address the confusion of the signs? I mean, if you walk over that intersection, and the cars that are approaching from like Cornell Orchards to coming down, they're not required to stop. But if you just go and stand there, about every fourth car stops, and it just causes calamity. And I know it's not within the bounds of the project itself, but if all the infrastructure is going to be ripped out of there, I mean, it just seems like a good time to look at that. Is there any mechanism we have to try to encourage that?
I'm going to ask Lisa and Joanne because I certainly don't know.
I mean, I think you could do it as a whereas, whereas planning board members have expressed interest in seeing signage improve in the area of the Dwyer Dam Bridge for pedestrians and vehicles, something like that, rather than, like as a whereas or a condition. I think we could express it, I mean, as a condition or a resolve. I think you could add that. I don't think there would be anything wrong with that. Lisa, do you agree? Yeah, I think that's fine, Garrett. And we could also, follow up with the traffic folks up at Cornell. We meet with them monthly, and so we have a pretty good relationship with them.
Okay, I think Joanne's idea is a good one. I mean, I realize Cornell is not in charge of the road signage, but it seems like an opportunity to look at it, and I don't want to miss it. So I think her language is good. So I'd be in favor of adding that.
I agree. Yeah.
So can you get once you get into the resolution, if somebody could give it to me again, that
Sure.
would be helpful. Yeah.
Mackenzie?
I'm ready to move forward with this.
Emily?
No further questions.
Okay, so I'm going to look for a motion for the green resolution. That's the final approval resolution on this. I see Mackenzie move and Emily second. Before we ask for a vote, and actually even before discussion, let's get that language for the whereas. And what I heard from Joanne was whereas the board has expressed concern about signage for pedestrians and vehicles in the intersection immediately adjacent to the Dwyer Dam Bridge. And maybe Joanne said it a little better than that.
I think that's fine, and that we request that the signage be looked at as the Dwyer Dam Bridge project proceeds, something like that.
Okay, does that sound reasonable to people?
You want that as a condition or?
I think that's a whereas.
No, okay.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense.
All right. Any other discussion before we move to a vote? Seeing none. All those in favor of final approval on the Dwyer Dam project? All right. I believe that's unanimous. And could someone text Elizabeth to let her know she could come back?
Okay. Anya's doing it. All right, I see the
Thanks,
project
Anya.
team for North Side, so.
Great.
This is really unprecedented. Yeah.
I said it's due to Lisa, who does such a great, no, really, it's true, who does such a great job in preparing materials for the board, really. And it does make the board's work a lot easier.
We're also at the end. Tonight there were a lot of like.
That's
No,
true.
you're right, tying up the loose ends.
Uh-huh.
That and Lisa likes to pad the agenda so I look good.
I was feeling bad, like that I didn't give people enough time, but so.
Okay, Northside Apartment Team. We've got somebody named Jules in the waiting room. Is that person associated with your team at all?
No, they aren't.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it looks like I see 5 names and faces from the Northside team. When you're ready, if you'd introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit about your project.
Okay, I guess I'll start. I'm Ed Keplinger, Keplinger Freeman Associates. We're landscape architects. With me, I believe, is Lindsay Hendricks from
Redevelopment Group, Ed.
Yeah, I know. It was on the tip of my tongue, Lindsay.
You were, it was
also
so
with
close.
us is Brenda Westfall. She's Executive Director of the Ithaca Housing Authority. I think Lisa Wenberg, who works at my office, may be on. And Bruce Levine is on as well from 3D
Yeah,
Development.
I'm on the phone.
Okay, great. I was told just to give a brief overview on the project. I'd like to share my screen if possible.
Sounds great. Bruce, I'm going to ask you to, there you go. I was going to ask you to mute yourself, but that's great.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Give me a second. I got to.
Sure.
So I'd originally, counseled the project team to do a very short presentation because we don't have very much time. I didn't think we would have very much time, but
We have time.
we have more time. So if you want
Sounds
to
like
go
we
into
have
more
some
detail,
time.
that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
It might not happen in future meetings, so it's good.
I have to find the. I had the screen up and ready to go, but it appears I don't now. So give me a second.
Take your time.
Do we have all night now?
True.
As you know, the project's a redevelopment project of the North Side Apartments. I had this all set to go in Nitro.
While we're doing that, maybe we could go ahead and declare lead agency. We do have a resolution before us declaring the planning board here lead agents on this project. It is the purplish resolution in your packet. Should be pretty simple. Is there a motion to declare ourselves lead agent on this project? I saw Mackenzie move. Is there a second? I see Elizabeth second. All those in favor of declaring ourselves lead agency on this project? That looks unanimous. Great. You now have a lead agent.
Our architect is
Great.
actually
Thank you.
saying he's in the waiting room.
Is it Jules?
Well, that's not his name. His name is Mark, but he is saying that he's in the waiting room as well.
Okay, I'll admit
It
him.
must be, some people mess this, people, yeah. We'll
Borrow a
see if it's him.
computer or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, Lisa, do you think you could pull it up? The problem I have is I'm in the, I might have it now.
I was gonna say, I have mine up if you need me to share my screen.
Yeah, why don't you share it, Lisa? And then I can,
Can everybody see that?
There we go. Okay. So this is the, you're probably all familiar with this facility. This is the North Side apartment site. It's comprised of 3 parcels, essentially 3 city blocks. We have a parcel north of Hancock Street, and then 2 parcels south of Hancock Street, and they're crossed in the area are 3rd Street, 4th Street, and 5th Street. The existing zoning is residential R3B. The existing conditions at the site, there are 14 residential structures on this site and 1 community building. These buildings were constructed over 60 years ago. The buildings have significant functional and structural issues, which we looked at. We tried to see if we could renovate them, but it was determined that they should be demolished. That's the best case scenario for this project. Also located on this site are some parking lots scattered amongst the buildings, some sidewalks and playgrounds, all of which will be demolished as part of this project. So flip to the next one, Lisa. Okay, so this is the context plan, and we're showing you this plan to get for what the development looks like. The site plans we submitted had match lines, so you might be a little confused as to where how the development fits together. What we're proposing here are 17 buildings in a community center. The 17 buildings will contain a total of 82 units. Each building will contain between 2 up to 6 units. The units will consist of either 1, 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms. The unit breakdown is 20 1-bedroom units, 20 2-bedroom units, 20 3-bedroom units, and 22 4-bedroom units. Each unit will have a patio on the back. Each unit will have a porch on the front. The units will be placed along the street frontages right on the front yard setback line, with the front porch is actually extending beyond the front yard setback. So we'll need a variance for the extension of the building into the front, the porches into the front yard. All the units will be front on city streets except for 3 buildings, which will front onto parking areas that are interior to the site. The community building will be located about where the existing community building is located on 4th Street. We're proposing 3 parking areas for a total of 82 parking spaces. 104 parking spaces are required, so we'll need a parking variance for the difference. We're proposing 15 cars in the north, at the north property line of the development, 22 cars at 4th Street, and then 35 or 37 cars located at the west part of the site. 2 playgrounds are proposed, one at the north, within the north portion of the development, and another one by the community building. We are providing, our plan is to infill all of the street trees along the street frontages where there's missing street trees. So we'll fill in the trees are missing along the streetscape, we'll infill. And we're also proposing generous foundation plantings along all of the street frontages. Let's see. As I said, we need 3 variances as part of this project. We need the front yard variance for the porches. We need rear yard variances due to the fact that since it's a city block, there's no rear yard associated with these. With the property, it's all front yards. So we have rear yard variances, but that's determined by code, and then we have parking, the parking variances. Flip to the next plan, Lisa. So this is a bird's eye view of the development. This is how it will fit into the neighborhood. You can see the architecture, the size of the houses, the the features and structure fits in with the neighborhood, and that's what the design intent is. Then let's flip to the building elevations. Okay, then this is a typical building elevation. As you can see, the buildings are 2-story in size. They'll have asphalt shingles. We're at this point, we're proposing vinyl clapboard and shake siding with cast stone accents. We plan to have a lot of visual interest with the roof lines and the stepping of the building facade. So that's our high level overview. I guess I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you very much. Given that this is a brand new project and it's the first time we've seen it, I think it might be worth just going around the room just to kick it off, just to get everyone's initial reaction. CJ, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Well, thanks for bringing this project forward. I, of course, always have concerns about parking, and would like to see a little bit less of it, if at all possible, or the reconfiguration of some of the parking. Some variation in color would certainly be appreciated. But yeah, that's just kind of my initial comments.
Garrick?
No comments right now, but maybe come back to me.
Mackenzie?
Thanks for this presentation. I'm really happy to see this this part of the North Side neighborhood be remodeled and for there to be new homes for people. I think that currently the neighborhoods have their like some examples of successful and some examples of unsuccessful crossings, like in between buildings and into public spaces like playgrounds. So just the interior flow of it, I think, is going to be important. I'll look forward to kind of like broader site plan things. I agree with CJ that color variation might be nice. And whether you're able to answer it now or later, I'm curious about where current residents will be placed during construction and how the unit mixes and number of units compare to the current iteration. Like, will there be families that are permanently displaced, or will everyone's unit be improved upon? And how's it going to work when people's homes are under construction? That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Elizabeth?
So I don't know if you went through this and I missed it, but did you have a breakdown of like how many singles, doubles, 3-bedroom apartments or housing you have? And then the other question I have, is there any community area for the development, like barbecue area or children's playground or like outdoor picnicking, anything like that?
Yes, I can give you the unit breakdown. There's 20 1-bedroom units, 20 2-bedroom units, 20 3-bedroom units, and 22 4-bedroom units. We have 2 community spaces planned, one at the community building that is at the parking lot off 4th Street, and that will have a playground associated and outdoor patio space. We haven't got that far to program in barbecue areas and things like that, but we can, those are something that we would definitely look to include. And then up at the north part of the site, we have a small playground planned at the interior of the units in that area.
Emily?
I think this is a great project. I appreciate the massing and the form and how it will fit into the neighborhood. And I echo CJ's question about reducing parking. You know, we have the Carpenter Circle development coming in, which will add retail, walkable retail. And there's already Aldi's as a grocery store. So I wonder if more units could be added and a little bit less parking. Otherwise, I think it's a great, much needed update. And I'm excited to see the next phase of progress.
Mitch?
Yeah, good project. I agree with Mackenzie's really great comments. And I would also push for supporting the 3 variances. The porches, I think, is a great addition, will be very nice. The rear yard and the parking variance, but also trying to reduce that parking at the same time.
For my own piece, I'll say that I think it's a compelling project. I'm sure that the vinyl is driven by budget, but there's a lot of different layers of vinyl or sort of tiers of vinyl, and I'd like it to be as high quality as the budget can support. I'll echo what my colleagues said about color and the use of color to drive some interest and variation between these units. And I'll also say don't, I mean, I realize everything costs money, but don't stop at color if you can. Anything you can do to break up, some of the design on some of these units so it doesn't necessarily look like it's all the same thing, I think will really make an impact into the quality of this development. But it's a good project. I mean, it's a good update, it's a good project, and I'm excited to see it come to fruition. Garrick, you told me to come back to you.
Yeah, just one question. I'm sorry if I missed this. What's the material on the bottom? Then the vinyl on top, and on the bottom it looks like there's a kind of the stone. What was that?
There's a cast stone veneer.
I'm sorry, we cut off. I could just say that again.
It's cast stone.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the applicant? It's a big project. We'll see it again. I understand from Lisa that the approvals timeline is kind of tight for you guys, giving some funding considerations. So I do want to make sure you hear as much feedback today as is possible.
Bruce, did you want to speak to the existing tenants and the tenant relocation plan? I know that that was.
Yeah. Yeah, I can speak to that. So this project is being done under a HUD program known as Section 18. It allows for the demolition and reconstruction of we've prepared a rather extensive tenant relocation plan. Every tenant in residence as of right now will be entitled to a tenant protection voucher, meaning they'll be able to take that Section 8 voucher and use it anywhere they would like, whether it's in the city or in the surrounding area. And we will give every one of the tenants that are there now a priority preference for returning to the completed units. One of the ways we're going to deal with the tight housing market is to move families in stages. So we're not going to be looking to move all 70 at once. We will do probably half the development, relocate those families, absorb into the community, then move on to the next stage. And then as units are completed and put back online, those relocated families will have the priority to come back.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the board or from staff? Or anything that the applicant wants to raise while they have us in front of them? Elizabeth?
Are you planning on mechanical systems being shared by all these units, and where are those going to be housed?
I think each unit will have its own. I'm the landscape architect speaking, but I think the units will be each unit will have its own utility system, HVAC, heating system. But I think that's something that we're still working out because we're trying to determine what.
Is Mark Caruso should be on the line. He be under Jules.
Yes, he is.
Mark, can you answer that?
You're muted. Seems to be here, but
Yeah, can you hear me now?
All right, well,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yes, each apartment will have its own mechanical system. We're still working out the details, but it will be individually controlled by each tenant.
Okay, I think that. All right, you broke up towards the end there, but it seemed like there was a consistent answer that each unit was going to have its own mechanicals.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions or comments for the applicant?
I just have a question about the, there are a couple comments around the sort of having color variation on the building. And I know that that's something that, and it's hard to see in this photo, but we actually have yellows and grays and blues, and that's perfect, thank you. So we've actually tried to set this up in a way where vertically each apartment almost looks like its own little entity or its own little home. So that was something we were trying to do, but I'd definitely be interested to hear a little more about those comments on the color variation, because we thought that we actually had a fair amount of color variation here.
Can I ask the members of the board that spoke to that to give a little feedback?
I didn't speak to that originally, but I think as I'm looking through the packet, it comes through a lot clearer on the printed version. And now that you've zoomed in, and I think, it's a great start. It starts to get washed out a little bit, but I see that, there's 4 or 5 different colors. So from my perspective, I think it's a good differentiation. The reason I also raised my hand, I'm looking at simultaneously the Google Maps walkthrough of Hancock, and I just want to praise the applicant team here for trying to make individual homes, because what's there right now is a single entry to one of the buildings for many apartments, and I think it sets up an automatic us versus them with different single family houses in the neighborhood. And so I think this approach to individual porches, either shared for 2 units or single units, is really great. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Emily. Any other pieces of feedback for the applicant? Okay, well, that might do it for today. I'd like to thank the applicant for bringing this to us. It's a compelling project, and I'm excited to see it move forward.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you.
I believe that brings us to 401 East State Street.
All right, let me see. Everybody's here. I'm gonna let everybody in.
Hello.
Hello. Looks like there's 5 of you. Does that sound like the right number?
No, there could be more. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Tim is in the.
Yeah, we're missing Tim Fish and maybe Donnie Kim.
That's. I just put it in everybody that was in the waiting room. We'll keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
Donnie Kim.
So Tim, you might want to let Donnie Kim know we're on. So.
Well, if you would, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project.
Will do. So good evening, James Trasher from CHA. With me tonight, also from my office, is Brian Bouchard. We're representing McKinley Development. From McKinley tonight is Jeff Giffens, who's the president, Robert Kachansky, who's the director of construction, and Tim Kalnin, who's from development. Tim Fish is from Cooper Carey, who is the project architect. Donnie Kim will also be on at some point. And then in future meetings, you can see Brandon Danke as well from their office as we move forward through the project. Just to kick this off before we get into the presentation of the project, I'll let Jeff Giffens give a brief overview of who they are and what we're bringing to the community.
Yeah, well, thank you, James, and planning board. Thank you guys for having us and accommodating us a little earlier, which is always welcomed. I know some of you through prior efforts in Ithaca. We have been looking at developing in Ithaca for several years now. It started with the Green Street Garage, in which we were not doing, but it led us to other properties in Ithaca, and namely the Gateway site, which we have been engaged with the Travis family for at least 12 months, probably 18, in structuring a project with them on the largely surface parking lot, which I think you would agree and they agree and we agree is underutilized as just a surface parking lot. And given its location in proximity to the Commons, visibility on State Street, it really was a prime development opportunity in our eyes, and I think in yours, to really develop a first-class apartment community to serve, the Ithaca market. So we have been at this for several months now and conceiving, first of all, with the fire marshal or the fire chief's input, Chief Parsons, given the site constraints and its unusual condition where it's, well below grade of State Street, you're along the creek. We wanted to make sure that, initially that we complied with the fire access and reach that Chief Parsons required of us and the code requires. And through several iterations, we were able to achieve that, and we did so before even presenting this and submitting this to the city of Ithaca. So we've done a lot of homework, I guess is my point, before even coming to you. And the result, we feel very pleased with, in that we have addressed all access issues for life safety and fire. We have accommodated pedestrian access to State Street and through the Gateway Commons property to the intersection, and have done our best to give service to the Creek Walk, where we will expand and enhance it from its current condition, and certainly stay off of the wall, and we're restricted from building any closer than 25 feet from the wall as a condition of the wall's construction. So we're very excited about this effort. We've got a great team on the development project, including James Trasher and CHA, and Cooper Carey as our architect. And Cooper Carey was the architect for the Marriott just down the street, and also has a long history with the city of Ithaca. So this is while it is residential in use, we are also accommodating the Gateway existing tenants and beyond in our parking structure. So we will house the Gateway Commons residential or residents in the parking that we're building. We will accommodate the Gateway office tenants and retail customers also within the parking. And that took some real thought and coordination between us and Frost Travis to make sure that we were able to park ourselves, able to park them, and then some. And, so a lot of effort went into the right configuration and parking count for the building. And the facade treatments and the architectural style, we tried to be certainly in keeping with the downtown design guidelines, but also consistent with what's around us, including City Center and other developments that are currently under construction. So we're very glad to be here, and we're hopeful to get your feedback tonight and continue to advance this as we have several meetings yet to to go before we're through this process. So thank you guys very much, and I'll turn it back to James.
So we'll share a screen. So Brian, you want to share your screen? We'll briefly first walk through the site plan, building layout, and some of the things we've gone through there. And then Tim Fish from Cooper Carey will go through the architectural elements. So just in layout of the site, Brian, use your hand. Gateway Center building, existing Gateway Center building, access off of East State Street. We plan on utilizing. We are coming into the rear portion of the site, as Jeff previously stated, which is the surface parking lot with the proposed multi-level structure. It will be comprised of both parking and residential units, and I'll let Tim get into that. A lot of the components that we initially worked on with city engineering started off initially with the retaining wall along Route 79. If you drive by right now, you'll see Economy Paving and their team starting the work on that project. So we've been in dialogue with city engineering to discuss, the components of that project and the development of a project on the grade below. Additionally, we've been working with Alpha Phi Alpha with their parcel and working out how we would be in conjunction with their development. We have a lot of site utilities and easements that run through the property. We have drainage lines that come off of Route 79 that go from Route 79 down to 6 Mile Creek, where we'll have to work with city engineering and relocation of those facilities. We have water, sewer that works its way through the site. As there is a rear building that was a previous industrial building on the rear of the site that will be demolished. So there'll be utility abandonment, utility reconstruction. We'll work through stormwater components of this project to meet both the management and discharge quality that's required by the city engineer's office as well as the state. We've had meetings with the New York State DOT to discuss the traffic impacts and curb cut location and what would need to be done. Currently, we've been discussing doing a trip generation letter for this proposed project, but want more input from your board as it relates to what you would like to see as it relates to a traffic impact study versus a trip generation letter. As was discussed by Jeff, initially we worked with Chief Parsons on the access to the site. So you can see the drive lane that works along the site, paralleling the building to where we would have a turnaround for fire apparatus. They would be able to pull in, back up, and then leave. That access lane is 26 feet wide as required by New York State Building Code and Fire Code. Additionally, we have 6 Mile Creek and the walking trail that we would extend. Previously, the developer had constructed a component of it, was street lighting or landscape lighting working its way back to the site. We would continue that to the rear of the parcel as part of the project. Part of our evaluation as well, just through some of our initial meetings with city staff, we'll look at the wall of 6 Mile Creek, because in this area, most likely, there will be some type of pile foundation. So either drilling or pounding piles. So making sure vibrations and those type of things as we go through the process with your board and seeker, we'll explore those with as well. So generally, that's the site overview. I'll let Tim speak to unit layout, parking counts within the parking structure, and the elevations of the building. Tim?
Sure. All right. Thank you. So yeah, basically the units, it's 240,000 square feet of residential, about 100,000 square feet of parking deck, 346 units, 310 parking spaces. So this sheet is just the code information and so forth. But yeah, going back to the site. So again, you can just see, the basic layout of those residential units. Can move on forward. And then we'll just basically walk up the floor plan. So basically, to the east, the site slopes up So on the lowest level on the top plan, we have an amenity area on the far left, and then the first level of parking. And then on the plan down below, you can actually see the parking entry right in the middle. Thanks, Brian. And then on the far left side, the upper level of the amenity space. So again, parking deck on the west side, it starts to stack up. And then on the east side, it's basically one level of parking with the residential that comes up above that. So again, it was really interesting site. So we did our best to make it efficient and break down the scale of everything as you can see the way these units work. So when we get up to the third level here, again, parking, so you can access the units, a few units on the west side, and then we start to stack up units on the east side. So the yellow units are basically studios. The gold ones, slightly darker, are 1 bedrooms. The blue are 2 bedrooms, and the purple are 3 bedrooms. So again, kind of jig-jagging the corridors to make make the depths work with the site and create some break in the scale. Moving up to the next level, pretty much same as the one before, or very similar. And then when we get up to the upper levels, 4, 5, and 6 here, you can see how basically we're now building on top of the parking deck in its entirety, and again maximizing the units by stepping the corridors in and out. We have a basically a access bridge over to Green Street, so we can get pedestrians in and get people in and out from a walking standpoint. And then they come in and access through that zone. And then again, you kind of see just how it all stacks up, making efficient use of the site. Okay, in terms of the look and feel of everything, we really want to, obviously it needs to be functional, efficient. We wanted it to be contextual and appealing with what's in the general vicinity in the Tuning Fork area, and comply with the design guidelines and so forth. So we're looking at a masonry aesthetic on most of the lower floors, and in a cement siding, basically cement panels, infill and up higher. On the lower left side, you can see how the parking deck starts to reveal itself, but again, we're trying to scale that down and hide it the best we can with the way the other brick piers come down in front, kind of that little bit of an industrial aesthetic. And then as you look from the Green Street side, so the interesting thing here is because the way the street slopes up, the site slopes down basically. So there's, the height, the perceived height along Green Street is really, pretty minimal on the far left side, and of course goes down with the hill to reveal the corner that you start to see that view on the lower left image. You can also start to see how it kind of nestles into, to the retaining wall and grade as it moves from the west to the east side of the site. And again, because of the way, there's a series of sections there basically that show how it starts to relate to the Green Street side. So again, just to clarify for the different points along the grade to make sure that all works well. You can see the overall longitudinal section, so east-west here. So you can see the parking deck beneath on the left side, obviously the units up above, and how the east side basically steps down adjacent to the parking area. And I'll move down to, again, some of the images. So the one on the upper left there, you can see the Riverwalk and creek on the right. So, we're really excited about kind of reactivating that and, being an amenity, not just for the building, but for the public as well. You can see that on the upper right image, the entry into the parking area. So again, really trying to, work the parking in so it's really part of the building, doesn't feel like it's a separate structure on top of just a parking deck. Lower left, view along Green Street with the Alpha Phi Alpha element in the foreground. So again, we're trying to play up the corner a little bit. That's where the one of the elevator cores is, on the corner of the building. And then just the feel along Green Street, and you can see that access to the courtyard right there. So basically how those courtyards start to break up. So one thing that we think is helpful, that really was driven by the site and the width of it, is creating all these courtyards really break down the scale of the building. So we think they're in a lot of ways similar to some of the other architecture that's around the district. So again, it's not a monolithic, long, continuous facade, but broken up pieces that bring in light and air to the courtyards and break it down in scale. So that's it in a nutshell.
So that's a general overview. We understand, this is the beginning of a process, and we'd like to get your initial feedback and then start, the meetings as we go through this process, the design review process, seeker, et cetera, with the board.
Thank you very much. I'll go around the room and just call on everybody. I've been going from the top down, so I'll go from the bottom up on my screen. Mitch, that means I start with you.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, good. Thanks for showing the project. It's quite a significant development for the city. And interested to hear what others think about the location of this and, the impact it will have. For my part, I think State Street, is becoming a denser corridor. And I think this building shares some sort of architectural components with the project at 430 West State. Seems quite similar, actually. But, at 346 units, it's extraordinarily big. And I feel that density is not a bad thing. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments from the board and the community about this kind of density in this location. I'm concerned about issues of affordability. I think I'd like to hear more about that, how you're thinking about that or approaching that. The Green Building Code, I'd be interested in knowing more about your approach to green building elements. And in particular, in terms of site layout, the road in the back that's required by code concerns me. It's 26 feet is a huge road. And, it would be great if some of that space went to the public way along the water. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mitch. Emily.
Thank you. I am excited to see this site get developed because I know and agree how underutilized it is. And I think maybe the grade change is a real opportunity to do something interesting. It's not another flat parcel, and it looks like you're already starting to address that in interesting ways. I am also curious about how I think it's the east end of the site has more connectivity potentially. And just something that I feel when I go there right now in a car, without all of these tremendously numerous units, it's hard to get in and out of the existing parking lot with the traffic on State Street. So I wonder, and I hope if there's going to be some signaling modifications, some signage that changes, because I think with this volume of traffic coming in and out, that could really impact the top of the tuning fork there. Aesthetically, I think it fits right into the warehouse vibe that was going on with the previous historic Ithaca building. And I appreciate the high quality materials, windows and masonry. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mackenzie.
Thank you. I'll say that I appreciate that you're building on top of parking. I, like to see that, especially with urban infill development. Something that came to mind as I'm looking at the renderings are that I want it to feel a little bit more quaint. I hear that you've made some moves to reduce some of the massing with courtyards and it being non-monolithic. I wonder if maybe adding some living elements or changing roof lines a little bit or little things here and there could kind of contribute more to that residential feeling, because this is, as has been said, like a very significant development. In some ways, it seems the largest scale in the city so far. And so along those lines, following up on what Mitch said, I'm also really curious to know about decisions that will be made around the workforce housing policy. There's actually been a little bit of buzz about this project, for what it's worth. Usually when applications are made, local medias, put something out there, and I've seen conversations on social media in which people lament that this isn't for them. They live in Ithaca and they definitely won't be able to afford this. And that's every developer's cross to bear at this point. We're in need of housing, and so I'm really supportive of increasing density, in the downtown area. And also it really has to be inclusive and accessible to everybody. I like that you're working with this public amenity space and kind of building it out. I have, sort of two divergent feelings about that. One is, of course, the environmental concerns of being near 6 Mile Creek. It's a sensitive area, and we heard from Dan Hoffman tonight, and I hope that you got his comments, and that there'll be a lot of discussion about how to preserve the naturalness of this area, what exists of it. But also, like, on a really positive side, I feel like there's a way that this could really speak to like the canals of Amsterdam or other really well-developed waterway housing and retail mixes. So yeah, lots of opportunity here. And so far, I think it's like a really fascinating project. I look forward to seeing what developments come. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Thanks for presenting this project. It's astounding. It's really big, and it feels like a huge opportunity to address a lot of traffic issues and other density issues along State Street. I guess I'm going to highlight one of the comments that Mackenzie said about the idea of having more mixed use along East State Street rather than just parking and residential. I think there's a lot to be said about making that area more walkable, and having retail or mixed retail space along East State Street, I think would be a great addition to this. I'd also, the development design seems very blocky and heavy. I'd like to see lighter aesthetic use of materials. I don't know if there can be some translucency with the courtyards so that we can peak views into 6 Mile Creek. And also it looks like there's a drive along 6 Mile Creek. So there's a drive and a sidewalk. I think that's a missed opportunity to add some public space with park-like features so that it can bring the public at large back there and not just make it this closed community. Hopefully that all made sense.
Thank you.
Those are my comments.
Garrick.
Yeah, I share all the comments that my colleagues have said. General thought, this is a really underutilized site. Putting housing in what has been a parking lot, of course, is great. Location, I think this could serve a number of constituencies, people working downtown. It could serve, it's close enough to Cornell, serve students, not even that far from IC. So it's kind of a very central site. So I think it's a great place to have housing. And I like the fact that the topography makes what would be a large building look smaller. I mean, this is mostly going to be seen from State Street, and it is going to look a lot smaller than it actually is. And so that's great to have density, but without the, otherwise negative consequence of density, sort of feeling overwhelmed by mass. And so there's a lot of things to like about the project. And in particular, and I'm going to quote the mayor from the BPW meeting last week, but he was really lauding the fact that we can literally hide parking, in a place where parking is going to be needed with all the development coming, being able to put that many spaces in a place where they're really not seen is also welcome. Questions I have, and I share, Emily's question about, the egress, getting in and out of there, what the traffic patterns are going to be like. I think the state owns the street there. So I know that's been for Carpenter Park and City Harbor. I know it's been difficult. So, I'm curious to know how that's going to play out. But clearly they're going to have to be, some address of the traffic there, some look at the traffic. I really like the fact that we can do more with the walkway along 6 Mile Creek. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say how long I lived in Ithaca before I even realized this site was there. It was years. And then, just a random appointment called me back there, and I said, wow. Because if you go up State Street, you don't really see this. It's kind of invisible area. And unless there's a reason to go back there, you don't see it. And so when I went back, I thought, wow, what a beautiful stream, what a beautiful walkway that a lot of people just don't know about. So I think, this is going to, the prominent building is going to pull more people back there and give them the opportunity to enjoy the amenity of 6 Mile Creek. Questions I would have is like, looking at the map, I think that the property boundary goes right up to the wall on the creek, but I just like some clarification on exactly where the property line is and who's responsible for maintenance of what part of the creek bed. Or, if the wall starts falling over, is that city property? Is it site property? So just some clarification on the maintenance and the ownership there. It would also be good to know, what are the public's rights to, is it just what's the legal mechanism? Are people, allowed to walk up and down there at the current determination of the property owner, but could that change, or is there something that would entitle the public to some access, or how is that going to work? Just thinking about the whole strip. I mean, there's a nice walkway along 6 Mile Creek, kind of going back behind the Urban Outfitters, toward the Cayuga Street parking garage. There's sort of a nice strip there. This adds a nice strip to further upstream. And a question, not for the applicant, but to the board is, could we take a look about seeing, is there anything we could do to make that whole stretch of walkway kind of a downtown amenity? And I think that the kind of the missing gap is, I believe it's the mental health building kind of behind there. There's sort of no access. And so, be interesting as a board thinking about long-term planning to look back behind the mental health building and see if, could we extend the walkway along there at some point as a future project? I don't even know who owns that, but, I think this causes us to look at, the walkway along 6 Mile Creek more holistically. So, those are my initial comments. I think this is a very promising project in the right place. Some challenges, but looking forward to it.
Thank you. CJ.
Yeah, I would ditto those comments. And also it's just so interesting to look at the property tax map and see that there's a 1.29 acre park parcel right adjacent to this. Just seems like there could be, like everyone's pretty much saying, some connectivity to the east. I know there's some gnarly topo there, but there could be some great opportunities for some trail segments and connectivity to the pedestrian bridge that connects with Giles and to Elston Place. And I think it's a great opportunity, and thanks for bringing it to us.
So I think you've gotten a good mix of feedback from the board. A lot of people bring up things that are challenging about the site or concerns that'll need to get addressed as we move through the process. And I'm sure you were aware of a lot of those. For my piece, I'll say that I think the biggest challenge with this site is just the scale. I heard one member of the board mentioned that it looked a lot like another site on State Street downtown that was aesthetically successful. And I heard another member of the board say that it was blocky and that blocky needed to be alleviated. And both of those things are true, and it's because this is just so big. And so I really wonder how, as this design develops, how we address that. And I wonder if there's not some material variation or some sort of articulation variation to get past that. I love the courtyards. I think that probably helps a lot. I think that's probably what keeps it as nice as it is. But I wonder if there's not more to do along those lines as this moves forward. And I saw someone send out in the chat that we had not done lead agency yet. So we should definitely do that. So before I forget, is there a motion to declare ourselves lead agency on this project? I see Elizabeth move and Mitch second. All those in favor of declaring ourselves lead agent on this project? And that looks unanimous to me. So you do have a lead agent. And I also think you have a pretty good set of feedback. I think that there's some clear things that are worth addressing next time you're before us. And I think we're all looking forward to really getting into it on this project.
No, and we appreciate your comments. A lot of the things that you brought up have been some of the initial comments we received at PCC, and wanted to get your initial input as we're going. And some of the comments that were brought up tonight, because it's late, we won't address, but we'll put back in written dialogue and a resubmission as we come to next month's PRC meetings and planning board meeting, in terms of the driveway to the rear, the 6 Mile Creek access. We'll, provide more detail and, go through the facade stuff. But, as we have done on other projects, we can tackle, item by item, as Lisa and you, the board, feel fit for a meeting. And we look forward to working through the process with you to give something not only that is a benefit to the community, but that the developer can work, from an economic standpoint and bringing this to the community. So we look forward to working with you. I know Jeff wanted to just provide a few comments as well based on the dialogue this evening.
Yeah, thanks, James, and thanks, Planning Board. And this is very useful feedback, and we will address all of this in future submissions and meetings. But I wanted to give a little bit of context to some of the design motivation and some of the inspiration for what we're doing, and just to state a few data points. The first is on parking, in that we are building on top of existing surface parking. So which round numbers is about 140 parking spaces that exist there today. We are adding, so assume 140 exist. On top of the 140, we're adding an additional 170. So it's not as if we're adding 310 spaces to a site that had no parking. We're adding a net difference of 170 spaces. Yes, it needs to be studied and considered, but it is, in total, net add, not maybe as large as it seems. The other is, and what was really important to us, was the State Street pedestrian connectivity, and for a couple of reasons. A, we think pedestrian proximity to downtown, the Commons, and other employment nodes in Ithaca will be more accessible for pedestrian access that way. The other is TCAT, where we've had discussions with TCAT on, there's stops very near this property, but there could be additional stops on State Street that we're evaluating. And that would be, a huge benefit in alternative modes of transportation that would relieve, the cars that we could park from having to be used daily. So those are all contributors to, lessening the impact on the current intersection. And then we're based in Atlanta, as McKinley, and have developed all over the country, but Atlanta has given us a very good example of a pedestrian pathway through that we kind of used as a model for this project in its kind of approach to the creek walk. And you guys may want to Google this. The Atlanta Beltline is it's probably a 30-mile loop through the city of Atlanta. It's an old train track that was converted in parts to pedestrian bicycle path. And it first started in an area of Atlanta that was, a very similar area to downtown Ithaca. I mean, it was urban, there was office, residential, retail around it. And the real motivation of the Atlanta Beltline board was to encourage development along the Beltline and to encourage it as close to the Beltline as is practical to promote the use of the Beltline. And that's exactly what has happened. It's the most used public amenity in the city of Atlanta because it's so accessible and because it's, kind of fall out of door accessible for those who live in an apartment or a condominium along its, its frontage. And I think there's real value to that from an urban planning and a public resource planning perspective, that bringing bodies to a pedestrian pathway will increase its usage by default. And I think it will increase, not just usage from our own residents, but from the public as we extend it throughout the property. And I know the connectivity further to the east and the north is desired. So I think it's a real opportunity to do that. And, so those are, we have not ignored the, respect to the creek walk. And I think we're, it's really foremost in our thoughts and planning around, that side of the property. So, wanted you to have that perspective because we have done, considerable research on other projects and other public infrastructure in other cities throughout the U.S. to come up with what we think could work on this site.
Thank you very much. Well, unless any member of the board wants to, Mitch.
Yeah, I just had a question, James. When you were giving your introduction, you mentioned the difference between a traffic impact study and a trip generation letter. What's the role of the board in determining what happens, which way you go? It sounded like you were asking for some direction from us, or is that something that happens with staff, or how does that work? What gets decided, what the differences are?
Can I respond? I've already asked for trip generation. I mean, I think seems like the major thing here is we have to figure out what the impact is on ingress and egress coming in through those driveways. So that is a trip generation study to begin with, but then we have to look at the app. We don't know if we're going to proceed until we look at the how many cars at what time coming through which driveway, and then how does that affect the movements? I mean, that's the main question, I think. And then a traffic study would then look at all the other intersections around, so the board we could start with trip generation, and I would do that. I think that's the thing you have to do like immediately.
Yeah.
And then we can look at that and with the help of the transportation engineers, in the city, determine what we need to do to study further.
Yeah. And based on the comments received tonight, trip generation has taken information from an ITE manual and correlating it to AM and PM times. But based on comments, from multiple folks, I would probably look at saying we might just bypass that letter and actually go do some counts at the driveway at AM and PM peak times. So we know the movements along State Street, the number of cars coming in, and then what level of service and what we would need to do to accommodate cars. Just because, I hate to submit something and then, 2 months down the road, and I'm just using this, also because we're coming to a holiday period where the DOT doesn't like traffic counts done between, Thanksgiving and New Year's because of, schools not in session, different traffic patterns because of holiday traffic. There is different traffic patterns now because of COVID, but the DOTs understand that. So most likely we'll come back so we can actually have analytical data to tell you like, hey, this is how many cars are on State Street. This is the number of cars turning in the morning. This is a number of cars exiting in the morning. And then we can give some empirical numbers. So you feel more confident when we're telling, hey, there's a 30-second delay or 27-second delay to make a left-hand turn. So based on, 5 of the board members and others saying, hey, we agree with the statement on ingress egress, I think we'll ramp that up a little bit just to keep the process moving along and not get stuck in the seeker process of, hey, we need more information. So, better be, penny wise and not pound foolish here. So that's what we'll plan on having for the upcoming meeting.
Great. That sounds like a plan. CJ.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask, I don't know if this area requires a transportation demand management strategy, but I imagine that's probably part of the approach you're thinking too. Just curious about, some of the other types of mitigations that other projects have included, like car share, things like that. Could be.
Well, and there's a whole downtown, the DIA has a whole transportation authority, I think you're going to have to look at stuff like that.
Yeah, 100% between bicycle, pedestrian, Uber, Lyft, TCAT, all that type of stuff. Our folks will look at that, in terms of how people are going to get places and where they, people are going, and that will be utilized to determine what needs to be done to provide safe ingress and egress from the site, not only for the, proposed new residents, but the people shopping in the existing Gateway Center building and the retail level and working in the offices above. And I just want to add one thing to the energy thing. It is a big component to this project because we are looking at that. We know we got to get 6 points. This team is looking hard at the 12-point plan to see, because there is, funding available from the IDA if you hit certain criteria. So that's something that Cooper Carey and their MEP folks have been going through. And so as we come to future meetings, we'll talk about things that we're trying to do to not only meet the 6 points to get the building permit, but also to try to make this a green and energy efficient building, and as part of this project. So,
any other questions and comments from the board? I think that might do it. Thank you very much. This was a great presentation for a very exciting project, and we will definitely be getting to know each other better over the next few months.
Yes, we appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you. And if stuff comes up or thoughts, pass them on to Lisa, and we'll continue to progress and look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks for the comments. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to zoning appeals. We've already dealt with 2 of the 3, and the one that's left is 130 Cherry Street, which is signage for the art house.
Widom is in the waiting room. I think do you want them to come in? They're,
sure.
Yeah. Kayla, is Lane Hutton with you?
Yes, he is. If you can hear me.
Kate's here too.
Yes, she's with us too. Yep.
Hello, everyone. You have Kate here from Widom, joined by Kayla. Kayla will be leading the presentation. I'm just here to say hi. And we've got Lane here from Vecino Group to talk about the signage that is a little bit different from what you saw when we were going through the site plan process. We think it's a positive change, so I'll pass it off to Kayla to show you what we're thinking.
Sure. Thanks, Kate, for that introduction. So I'm going to pull up my screen so that we can see our new signage. So we have 2 proposed signs for Ithaca Art House, and one does require a variance. So this blade sign, which is shown on the east side, so it fronts Cherry Street, is the one that we're requesting variances for. This sign, the square footage is a little bit over what is allowed in this district, as well as the projection is a little bit farther out than the 18 inches that are allowed. But as Kate said, we feel that this is a better design sign than the last one that we were showing. It is different and it will be more visible from Cherry Street as well. And to show you where it's located on our plan, if you can see my cursor, like I said, this sign is the one that fronts Cherry Street. And that's the one that we're hoping to get variances for at the BZA meeting.
Just to jump in, it changed from being an on-building sign. It used to be on the north facade of the building facing the Cherry Art Space. It was on that tower. Yep, Kayla's got it up. So we think the blade sign is a little more friendly to the streetscape. And we hope you'll agree, and that's why we're asking for the variance.
Great. I'm going to check in with Lisa just for a second. Are we doing anything beyond speaking to BZA for the variance? Are we approving signage in some other capacity?
Well, I mean, technically it's a project change, but I mean, I feel like, you can use this as a way to approve the project change if you feel like it's a good project change.
Sure. So let's just go around the room and just get reactions to the signage. I'll say for my piece, I think it's at least an innocuous change. I mean, it seems pretty benign, and I like the blade sign. And I'm going to go from bottom to the top since I've been doing that less. And Emily, I would start with you.
Sure, I agree with you, Rob. I like the blade sign better. I think in terms of wayfinding, this is clearer from the street, and it seems like the appropriate scale for the building. So I like it.
Thank you. Mitch?
Yeah, I think it seems good. Will it be lit? It looks like there's the letters are backlit. Is that what's happening?
Yes, it will be backlit.
Seems fine.
Mackenzie?
I think that it makes this area more urban friendly, a little more like street pedestrian oriented, which is cool. And I also like it because there's kind of a theatrical element to it, which I think really fits in with like Cherry Street becoming this like industrial arts district. So I think that's cool.
Elizabeth?
I like it. I think it's an enhanced design element, and I support it.
Garrick?
I agree with everyone else.
CJ?
Yeah, ditto.
All right, so there's definitely a consensus. So that makes that part easy. Now, the question that I don't have the answer to is what do we say to the BZA on it? I don't know that it matters so much that we like it, but I don't necessarily know what does matter for the BZA on signage. So Lisa, I'm going to ask you.
Well, I mean, I guess they need to say why it needs to be bigger than what's allowed.
Why does it need to be bigger than what's allowed?
If I could speak to that, I think it's just the scale of the building calls for a larger size, and ever so slightly, might I add. I would say that's about it, though.
What is the total increase above what's allowed? X versus Y. Sorry.
The allowed square footage is 50 square feet for this building sign.
And we're sitting at
About 60, I believe, just for the sign itself.
got it. Okay. So we could say it's in keeping with the scale of the building. I think that's appropriate. I think we could say what Mackenzie said about adding to an urban feel. I think especially when you're speaking to the projection. So if we're projecting a little more than we're supposed to, saying that the blade side makes things feel more urban, and that's in keeping with the long-term planning vision for this area. That seems like a reasonable through line. And I will say, I just don't know what else we can say on this. I just feel like it's not helpful for me to say I like the sign, although I do like the sign. Yeah, Lisa.
Well, why can't it just be the size that is allowed by zoning?
Lane, if I could throw that question over to you.
Sorry, I didn't catch the question. What was it?
Why can't it be the size that is allowed by zoning? Why does it have to be bigger?
Well, in all
it's a
honesty,
residential building, like, you don't
Yeah.
it's not a business or something, so.
No, and you're right. In all honesty, the reason it came into this is beyond my scope. This was come up with by the creative team. I would imagine that they have an idea to gain the visual aspect from farther away than what 50 square feet would allow us. I'm not aware, or I'm not sure that they were aware of the 50 square foot that they could have been kept to as well.
Another point is that this is the same size as it was during site plan approval, which we know does not have any bearing on sign permits or variances. But the current state of Cherry Street is, the wayfinding is not totally intuitive as it is right now. So just to add to some of what Lane was saying, that's part of why it's a little bigger than the allowable size.
Mackenzie.
So I think that we've spoken in favor of it, and also in standard fashion, we can say that we see no long-term negative planning impacts. But because this is a self-imposed problem, that, the BZA will decide what the BZA decides. I mean, we support it, but it seems like I agree with Rob that like we've supported it as much as we can support it, including by saying it's not a harmful, it won't have any harmful planning impacts.
Yeah, that seems about right. Garrick, you had something to add?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a fair argument or not, but we mulled over. But this is an area that had been single-use industrial, and now we see this as a first residential use. There's been proposals of residential uses on both sides of it, and then we also have some residential use coming in at the old airplane factory. And I wonder if there, we could say there's no negative impacts, but I wonder if there's a positive impact in that we're sort of signaling to people that this is now an area that's transitioning from just industrial to a mixed use industrial and residential. And a big sign that, to me, the sign's clearly it's not a commercial sign, it's a residential sign. And I think allowing it to be more visible signals to the public, in keeping with the comprehensive plan, that this is an area transitioning to mixed use. I don't know if you want to use that argument or not, but it's an argument.
I'll say I like that argument. CJ?
I would say also, there's kind of a ornamentation to the sign that's, I think, kind of brings out a more positive character to the building, I suppose you could say. Kind of helps people orient themselves.
All right. Well, that to me sounds like a lot to work with for a BZA recommendation. So thank you. I appreciate the applicant coming in, and I think that does it.
Thanks. And we're in company of some pretty other interesting signs over at Cherry Arts in particular. They've got a great, huge cherry, which we hope to complement that with our sign. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. That brings us to old new business. Written on here is end of year schedule, which we should get into. Also, I wanted to talk after that a little bit about the letter McKinsey sent out via email. But first, end of year schedule.
Yeah, I just want to check in with you guys. Usually because the planning board meeting usually falls very close to the Christmas holiday for those who observe it. We usually move the meeting up 1 week. This year it would be on the 22nd. The regular meeting would be on the 22nd. So we would move it up to the 15th with project review being on the 3rd. If people want to do that, if people don't want to do that, that's totally fine. But
I'm fine with moving it up. I would
Great.
probably also be fine with the original dates, depending on what we need to do.
is there a consensus? Should we move it or not?
Can you say it one more time? I was just pulling my calendar up.
So the regular planning board meeting would be normally on December 22nd.
Yeah.
So if we moved it up, it would be the 15th. Yeah, it's not that close. I mean, and nobody's traveling, I'm sure, so. Doesn't matter to me. Is it?
I don't know. Are we traveling? Is anyone traveling?
I won't be at that meeting anyway, so.
That's right.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'd rather move it up
This is your
time in the evenings and closer to Christmas.
You would rather move it up?
And I think it's standard practice to move it up. I don't think, yeah.
Just I kind of need to know kind of in ahead of time so I can prep the applicants for this because it comes right after the November meeting. They're like already getting ready. So yeah. All right. So if I'll move it. And then I just wanted to mention I got some notification from HR that you had been directly communicated with about redoing your sexual harassment prevention training. Did you get that email? Okay, so I just want to make sure if you need anything from me, let me know. Otherwise, you know.
I don't think I got anything.
I'll send it to you. If you've done it with work,
Yeah,
you probably can just
at
send
Cor-
it.
If your Cornell certification would probably apply.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm done.
And then the other thing that we should talk about in old new business is the letter that McKinsey sent out, which I will say I've read, but not read in detail. And wanted to know if there was anybody who wanted to take the next stab at it for revisions or look at it again, since McKinsey is going to be away from the board for, more important things for a little while. And I would do that with somebody. I don't necessarily want to do it by myself, but if somebody wanted to kick a draft back and forth, a couple rounds, I'd be game.
I put some suggestions in, but they're
awesome.
Kind of just
Yeah.
minor copy edits.
I haven't had a chance to read it, but I definitely will.
Great. So
Can,
sounds like
can we all do that with the comments on the side?
Yeah, this seems good. So let's do that, and we'll kick it back around via email and pick it up next month, if that's something people are appropriate doing or feel is appropriate. Awesome.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
Yeah. Thank you also, Mackenzie, for keeping me from falling down twice this board meeting.
I understand. I very much understand.
I don't have any report as planning board chair. I will say I appreciate this board, and I appreciate that we were able to get through this meeting in a less than wholly excruciating fashion. BPW liaison.
Yeah, only to say I think there's going to be some interaction with the BPW on this project on State Street because of both the traffic. But my understanding also is there's some utility issues with right of way for I think water and sewage and so on. So we'll see where that goes. And Rob, since you're giving me the floor, I did want to ask. We talked last month about appointing an alternate representative in the interim when McKinsey's doing more important things. I'm in favor of that. Just because, in terms of the voting, a missing member is effectively a no vote. And there's a lot of projects in front of us that I'm enthusiastic about. And I, like those developers to have a full board so they have a full possibility of getting 4 yeses. There are former board members who still live in the city. So I don't know if there was thoughts about that, but I just put it back out there.
Yeah, thank you for that. Lisa, I think you had mentioned about the mechanics of that, and I don't remember where that stood. Is it just what staff, picks a person, or how does this work?
Well, Joanne and I looked at we just kind of looked at the past board members because because of the complexity, I feel like, of these projects, it seemed like it would be good to have somebody who had previously been on the board. And we looked at all the previous board members and we just sent it to the mayor. He said anybody was fine if you guys want to do it or don't want to do it. He was fine with all of it. He would have to appoint somebody, I guess. But one of the things we found was that so many of them don't live in the city anymore. So the ones that did live in the city, which ones? Isabel Fernandez was one that still lives in the city, right? And there was one more, I think, Schroeder, but he's very hard to get in touch with. He doesn't have an answering machine, and I think there was one more person, so I can circulate that around. The list once many people had moved out of the city, so they were no longer eligible for even an alternate on the board.
All right. Well,
But the mayor was open to it if that's what you want to do and if you feel like it's necessary. I gotta say, Joanne and I were we thought it was a really good idea. And then once we started really thinking it through, we weren't quite sure. But if we hear that you really want that, then maybe that's, we can circulate the list and see what we can do.
Sure. I'm open to it. I don't necessarily, I don't need it. But at the same time, I think there's a virtue to having as many folks on the board for these types of things as we can. So, that seems like a fine thing to try.
Do people anticipate being out in November, December, or January? Mackenzie will be back you'll be back in January, or you'll be back in February? I can't remember.
I'll be back. I'm planning for the February meeting.
All right. So it sounds like there'll be a list and we'll pick it up there. All right, director's report.
I just wanted to let you know that we are going to restart the search for director of sustainability. We had gotten all the way to the end of the search before COVID hit, and so now we're going to start again. So that's good news. And I think I told you last time that there's the Nova Brzezinski team is going to be submitting a big project for College Town in November. It involves a PUD, and it will be, site plan review and potentially an environmental impact statement too. So that'll be how next year will look for you. You'll hear about it soon. Probably they'll come in probably January.
That sounds great. All right. Well, I think that's it. Is there a motion to adjourn? I saw Mackenzie move and Emily, although Elizabeth was right in there, so who knows? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Keep in touch with us, Mackenzie.
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Absolutely.
I will let you know. I'm excited. I'll miss you all, but I'm looking forward to time away.
Good luck.
Reasonable.
We'll be here. So.
Thanks.